bit of warning here. This was recorded pre-election and had a lot of problems with the recording. The video was shit. The audio wasn't much better. Tried to smooth it out with some AI audio tools. The audio was so bad I had to add hard-coded subs. I wasn't ready. Didn't have any of my setup hooked up. The other guys, as always, amazing. It's John Warner IV, Jean-Luc and I, just shooting the breeze. There's never an agenda, never a topic discussion. We just launch into it. And sometimes we record them and I cut them up. It's a little bit diced here and there just because of this was a 4.5 hour chat. It is pretty long, so hang in there. There's some good stuff.
That does sound like me.
There we go. So you're alive. You're not dead. Everything is okay. You're just taking some time off. Fuck it, right? These people
Didn't crash Cadillac into the oak tree.
Didn't crash a Cadillac.
Not yet.
Hey, John, do you know?
Wait, before I gotta read this to you. So I get Danny Sheehan's
emails,
letter every week, and it says here today. He goes, the UAP Disclosure Act still in play? Last week, I may have jumped the gun when I called the UAP Disclosure Act a casualty of Washington's indolence. Thanks to the tireless reporting of Matt Laszlo from Ask Cole, we now know that Senator Mike Rounds continues to work behind the scenes to get the UAP bill included in this year's National Defense Authorization Act. Yeah, good luck. Danny, he's like, I love Danny, but come on, man, this Jesuit's out of his mind. Working for the Pope or the man, or he's doing it. Work with Congress for disclosure. That's never going to work. It's never going to come from Congress or the Pentagon. There's no way, or any government agency. A war's gonna happen, a bigger, wider war. I don't want to say World War III because everyone thinks nukes. No, just a wider war, and all of a sudden, oh, what's that black thing in the sky that's a mile across? I don't know, but it's bombs on Lebanon, and it's gonna start like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
everyone's trying to work with Congress. It's like, I don't even know why Congress is even putting, a UAP bill, disclosure act or anything, like that up there at all, when they have no intention of really doing it. That's the real mystery, Chris Mellon, is why are you talking about it and yet saying nothing?
Well, what do you think he's doing? He's always talking about behind closed doors. We're meeting with all these congressmen behind closed doors, and we're giving them briefings, and we're doing,
Yeah, I bet some high school kids know more about the UFOs. Those guys do. Come on in, guys. We've got some consultants coming from the high school up the road.
No shit. It's like field trip interns. I did hear Matt Laszlo in a interview talking about like everybody that's in charge, like Schumer and everybody else, that they just basically pawned all of it off on their what is it called? Not a page, but what's their Congress? They have like the minions that do all their shit for them. You know what I'm talking about, Warner? Their aides, like their aides, right, or whatever. They're the ones that are going to the meetings. And I guess when Grush gave the briefing and all that stuff when he did to Congress, it was just to the aides. Like none of the actual Congress people were in there. It was only like just the people that take notes for him and showed up. So it wasn't even part of the people there. So.
I almost think that any of the politicians that are getting behind it just see that there's a big chunk of the voter base that love all this stuff, yeah.
But the hearing was ruined by Tim Burchett and others, giggling about it, and so the whole thing smacks of somebody on the inside telling them, "Oh, go forward and do something, but don't do much, or we're going to kill you." And they're like, "Well, what do we do?" And they sort of talk around it and sideways and TTSA with Tom DeLonge. And it goes,
that's the thing, but there's a big divergent from that. I mean, because, Mellon and Elizondo bolted when the money ran out. Somebody I heard on the underground.
They don't need money.
Well, yeah, I think the other guys got promised cash, like Justice and somebody else, but but that didn't go out. So I guess they bailed. But, that there's that talk because you got Semivan kind of stepped in. When Semivan kind of came into TTSA, Mellon and Elizondo were like out, and Semivan is high level spook, from extraordinaire. So like, what is he doing? What's he pushing? Right. So did he just bifurcate them on purpose, go and get the fuck out of here, or because they're not selling the right thing or not going along the party line, or whatever they're trying to push? Because it seems that way. Because you get down to Lavinda. I mean, I'm 800 pages into fucking Lavinda's book with DeLong. Lavinda's a decent writer, but man, I spent 750 pages not learning a fucking thing, except for all the stuff that you taught me, Warner, about Dorberger and all those other asshole Nazis that were in America.
It's for young adults and people new to the subject.
Yeah. It's like a glossary.
I like Peter Lavinda. He's written a good books. I liked his Unholy Alliance book.
Yeah. He does massive research. It's massive.
He's good, and Farrell's good, and I got a lot of information from them. But people do need softball books to start out, because it's the most complicated issue in human history, and it goes everywhere, all over the place. World War II, the Renaissance, ancient Sumeria. Holy cats! So you got to start somewhere, and a lot of people aren't good with history. It's too much for them. It's overwhelming, and I don't blame them. A lot of history is very dry. But my advice for people new to the subject is you can start with the 1897 airship mystery and go forward.
Yeah.
Forget all the ancient history for now. That's very complicated. You can watch Brian Forster and John Anthony West on Egypt, and you kind of get an idea. Freddie Silva is very good for ancient civilizations, pre-Diluvian, and stuff like that. But really, it's World War II to the present where that's the most important, because in the 1890s they had some sort of anti-gravity technology. I think Bosley's right about that. And so, but back engineering a crash UFO back then, forget it. I mean, they just looked at it. I read a story once that they had a couple just in like a barn or a warehouse, and it just hovered there, and they were like, we don't know what to do with it. It took them till the 30s, I think, or maybe after World War II, where a UFO just was abandoned, and they were able to get inside finally, but they had to use psychics. They couldn't burn a hole through it. They couldn't smash a hole through it. They couldn't do anything. But the psychics, they tuned it in the vibration and the door opened. So, because there's no seams in the craft. And so, it's stuff like that. But, this stuff, this is bad because, if I'd like to punch him in the nose, but do it. I'd say, Lou, I don't know what your game is, but this is really dangerous thinking, because you're talking about stuff that was interesting maybe in the 70s and the 80s, or maybe the early 90s, but not now. And so they don't want to scare people too much. I know that because I talked to John L. Peterson, and he was in the room with both Mellon and Elizondo within the last few years. And he said, "Who gave you permission to come out?" And they jumped down his throat. So what do you mean we needed permission? We didn't. And he's like, "You're here at this meeting in the Pentagon. Somebody gave you the green light." And they got really angry at him.
They wouldn't tell him, huh?
Hell no.
No.
Okay. And Eric Davis said he didn't know who gave them the green light either. Putoff is not saying anything. They probably have an idea of a group of people, probably military officers and civilians, who are like, shit, we got to do something. Because the whole Twitterverse and the internet is full of this stuff. We better get ahead of it. But the official congressional, Mellon operation, it's very thin and very watered down. It's better than nothing.
Yeah, I agree on that. It's completely better than nothing. I mean, we've come a long way since 17, but at the same time,
yes and no. I mean, before my dad died, he said, well, your cousin and these other people, they're coming forward with it. Somebody gave them serious permission. Probably Bobby Ray Inman was in that mix. But he was probably one of the conservatives who said, don't you let on too much. Keep their minds on, the threat and the little green men shit. and don't let them talk about the military industrial complex and the military, that and the corporate angle, but all that information is out there for people to touch upon, because, and maybe if we think really crazily out of the box, maybe that's their plan all along. Remember, I said this a long time ago. It's like, it almost seems like they're doing such a bad job to make everyone else do their job better on the movement end.
And then you do your
own
research. Yeah,
dark journalists, J.P. Farrell, hell, RFK Jr., maybe Trump, others. Trump is talking about his uncle.
Yes?
Oh, my uncle was a really important scientist. Really? I never heard of him. So, I mean, I don't think Trump's going to do much in the public sphere if he makes it in November. But
he already had the opportunity and dropped it on the whole JFK thing. So it's not like,
he dropped the ball on that, which I think was cowardly. And I told some people that know Trump, who are close to him, I said, you can tell him from me, that's a fucking coward's move. I don't care.
Unless they threatened him, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's like whistleblowers who come out and do interviews without a face or a name.
Right.
And it's like, how the fuck are you going to trust, not that everyone's trustworthy, but it's like, geez, why would you trust them? And some of them seem very knowledgeable in military matters and things like that. But it's like, and then they say John F. Kennedy Jr. is still alive, but he turns his back to the camera and gives an interview. And I'm like, he's a fucking coward too. He got his father's looks and his mom's brains. My sister was best friends with JFK Jr. He dated my sister's best friend for 5 years.
Wow.
He's a nice guy. He was a nice guy. He was not smart. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be arrogant or anything, but he's not the kind of person that Trump's going to keep secret for what? Roll him out as, oh, he's been hiding all these years? Okay, he's a double coward.
Do you think there's any rumors to that, or that's just more Russian?
There's a lot of rumors to it, and frankly, I don't give them much credence.
No.
It's not important.
No.
Okay, he's alive. I'm glad he and his wife, let's say they are alive. His wife, they never talk about his wife or her wife's sister who was in the plane with him.
Right.
They never talk about it. They only talk about him. And I've scolded a lot of people for that. I say, if he's alive, I hope his wife and the sister are alive. Oh, well, I don't care about that. Well, and most likely they aren't. But if they are, why are they hiding him in some military facility for what? 20 plus 25 years? More?
He can't be.
Ridiculous.
Surely.
For what?
Yeah. No,
Anyway,
he's
that's
dead,
no,
man. He's not dead.
Yeah, I don't even think that's a thing. I think that's just more Russian propaganda bullshit, just trying to spin everybody up. I mean, honestly, I don't know.
God, it could be anyone's propaganda. It could be
true.
factions in the deep state. I think it's nonsense. The whole QAnon thing was difficult to understand and follow. You needed gatekeepers to explain it to you. So that was useless.
Mm-hmm.
And it was vague. It was childish. So I don't know if Trump really had something to do with that. Everyone wears those Q hats at his rallies.
I followed that back. I went down hard.
Right?
Yeah.
That.
General Flynn, they reckon was the one sort of behind it, or whoever was working for him. Like
they didn't do anything. Consider the vastness of space. Wow. Thanks a lot.
What Q's done is make everybody believe that the Democrats are baby-eating cannibals who worship Satan in the woods, yeah? And lots of people do. And lots of people do believe that now. And they do believe that, you go around to the Clintons' house and they're going to be raping kids and drinking blood. And there's enough voters in America who now believe that stuff that Trump's their only option to vote for because a Democrat's a cannibalistic Satanist, yeah? And so that's kind of weird.
Those stories also include the Bushes and who are Republicans. So, I mean,
well, that's true. That's true.
If you're in a satanic group, I don't think there's anything to do with politics in that.
No. And coming back to TTSA and stuff, like, the names that, for example, Lou Elizondo recently came out and said in an interview someone said, who in government or who in politics would have been perfect to help you push this forward? And he came out and went, well, John Podesta. Podesta's OTO, right? Lavender, however much he says, is OTO. DeLong, I don't know whether he's OTO or not, but probably. All of these people seem to be connected to the same groups, yeah? Like, so if there's anybody that's connected to this stuff, it's probably that group. I mean, do you think Podesta is a satanic freak, or?
I don't know.
No,
I don't have much to say about him. I don't think he was very effective at anything he did, really. He's a non-person to me.
Yeah, just
I mean,
fucking
person.
When did he come into it? I mean, Tom DeLong was emailing him, trying to get his help with disclosure, right?
Yeah.
So, but then when you sort of like look at the Podesta emails, you know, there's the big one where he's invited to a spirit cooking party at Marina Abramovich's place, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
But then there's the other one. I mean, that to me was like, well, he's just going to some fancy artist party, right? It's a bit of fun. But the other one that is suspicious is that one where he's communicating with the witchcraft professor about, and it's the email's called Thelema.
Oh, wow.
Remember that?
Oh, Telema? That's the Crowley stuff?
Yeah. So there's an email in the Podesta files that this chap who wrote him, and he's a historian, professor of one of the unis over in the States, and the email's basically just saying to John Podesta, any chance of you helping me get a meeting with Obama for my mum's friend or something? She loves him, and if there's any way that we could get that meeting, it'd be much appreciated. And then he calls it a Thelema favor. So then I'm like, all right, well, Thelema can mean lots of different things. I think it means favor, yeah, like in Greek. So but then when you look at who sent the email, the guy is the ultimate professor of witchcraft in the US.
Holy shit!
Yeah. So, and his book is called Satan's Coven and all this, yeah. So you kind of go like, well, looks to me like he's probably talking more about Thelema. He's asking for a favor from somebody from his group, yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That seems about right.
So my suspicion all the way through this has been obviously the links to the Crowley stuff, like to Thelemites, like in high positions, I suppose. I don't know. But I don't know. I've got no evidence for any of it, so it's all speculation.
Well, then, you know what, you and I were talking earlier, I don't know when, but about, basically trying to bring this whole thing into the public consciousness so that, 10% of the population believes it. And after that point, then it's, kinetic, and then everybody starts believing it. And then, after you get that idea out, basically it's like a tulpa, right? And it becomes, it's real at that point. Even if it's not real, it becomes real because you basically have so many people that believe in it lock, stock, and barrel that it's, we consciously create it. Yeah. So I think that could be part of this whole Thelema thing they're trying to push. It could be this whole thing where we're going to, even if it's not real, we're going to make it happen. We're going to make aliens real. We're going to make UFOs real. We're going to make all these things come down,
Well, I think that the whole philosophy that seems to be the TTSA stuff and Lou Elizondo and all that they're working off is the Hyperstition model, which comes from the accelerationists. I guess they're outright neo-Nazis, but it's the idea that you bring on your chosen reality by making it happen, by pushing it through. And the people who sort of came up with those ideas, it was in the 90s, and it was a philosopher called Nick Land, he's the one that invented all these ideas, and that's one of the main influences for the Order of the Nine Angles, the satanic group that have infiltrated the military and all that. They became like atom weapon, and it's serious shit. But it's a Nazi philosophy built around the creation of a new reality, and they call it accelerationism. And part of that is
accelerationism. Yeah. So it's they kind of did. I mean, once the Nazis came into power, the world was never the same. It's still not the same today. It still has, the symbol has, a swastika has immense power. It drives people up the wall, even though it has multiple meanings and its original meanings were peaceful. The Nazis did create a reality that's still with us. fascism doesn't go away. Nothing goes away. It just goes underground. And look at the Germans and Austrians. They put the far right back into power. I'm not saying they're Nazis. They're not. But, there's a backlash against liberalism across much of Europe and the United States.
Big time.
Because everything's out of balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You need the balance. And everything in America, all my liberal friends, my age, I'm 62, so they're just like, wow, what happened to the Democratic Party of the Kennedys and other people that we enjoyed that was centrist? I said, that's gone. They pushed everything to the extreme, and it's full of nonsense. And I'm sorry, DEI stuff is nonsense. Critical race theory is nonsense. And the transgender movement is nonsense, because not that there aren't people who feel they need to change their sex. I don't have a problem with that. It's just people under 18 or, God forbid, under 21. Come on, you're still a kid. And so things that, people come forward with these kinds of topics, gay rights and everything, and the Star Wars flap in Hollywood going on when they did The Acolyte, where it was the lesbian space witches, and the producer was gay, and the lead star was gay, and everyone was gay, which is fine. It's just they were pushing their message.
Yeah.
And Star Wars fans went crazy, and the lead star, the African American girl, said, "Oh, everyone's a racist, and they're all white men and everything." No, they're not. Half the people who watch Star Wars are women, and all colors, and people of all colors. They took a millimeter and took it in, made it a light year. It was insane. And so liberal causes have now become, nonsensical.
Well, I've seen
done all these movies interviewing these people, and they're just, they're absolutely out of their minds. They're like, oh no, there's 50 genders. So
John,
it smells of an agenda from on high that was started a long time ago, like 30 years ago in the 90s. How can we destabilize the country in 30 years?
Yeah.
And, I have some gay friends here in DC, and they're like, what happened to our rainbow flag? Now it has symbols and millions of colors. And they say, we don't get along, the gay men, my friends, we don't get along with lesbians. They don't like us. And lesbians don't like gay men or straight men or any men. And so I have a lesbian friend too, and she says, yeah, it's just gone haywire. It doesn't represent me or my mate. It's all these weird kids and the 50 genders and the DEIs. It's all rolled into one. And so anyway, the whole point is, I think it's an agenda. George Soros's crowd, look at the liberal billionaires who are into all that stuff, and think of people you've never heard of, and they're all in that mix. And boy, did it work, because it's ignited a fire under the ass of conservatives and centrists in America. Now, I'm a libertarian, I'm a centrist, but boy, do I lean towards the right now, because you don't have a choice. It's insane.
But this is what I find strange. It's like, what used to be the liberals of our society, like, for example, someone like J.K. Rowling, right? Feminist, seemingly free thinker. Now, like, a whole bunch of the world thinks she's a horrible bigot, that she's coined, like, as a Nazi, a horrible TERF, or because she's not into the transgender stuff, for children. So then you get people like me, because I think that I was on the left wing of stuff, like more liberal, but I don't like that stuff too. So I'm like, so all of a sudden, I'm not in the camp I used to be anymore, and I'm over there. Meanwhile, liberals are becoming Jew haters because of what's been going on. So you're getting all these people who are now anti-Semites to some degree, and it's the whole Jew conspiracies out there.
Israel and college campuses. And I'm like, I tell everyone, and they never listen to me, but I say, my gosh, don't take sides in Middle East wars.
Right.
You need to be neutral. You need to be in a circle. You need to change your perspective.
That's it.
Events warrant. And they're like, oh no, Hamas. And well, I don't like Hamas or the other, extremist groups that use weapons to, and Israel is under siege. You can't blame them for defending themselves, but it's boy, that's the easiest war to start. To whatever there else is going on in the Middle East, all eyes are on the trash can fire.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
But up here in Afghanistan, U.S. Special Forces and others are doing something. Then they don't want any. I mean,
anybody know about that?
there's got to be. I found at least 30 forward bases, U.S. bases in Iraq.
Whoa.
They're out in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere, and there's no way for Iran to come across the Iraqi desert. They'd have to go up through Turkey to Syria to have a land war. So they're kind of landlocked, Iran. But boy, they're up to mischief. Their military is not that great. It's not. It has danger to it, but they barely have any decent jets. But it's like I tell my wife, it's like she's like, "Oh my God, they launched another missile," and I'm like, "Wake me up when they launch a nuke." Because everything else has just been going on for 80 years, since 1947.
Yeah.
When they created Israel. War after war after war after, whatever. It's sad. It's become routine. And
it makes a lot of money for a lot of people.
Right. If anyone, let's just do a hypothetical scenario, because, it needs to be said. If Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, and let's just say for giggles, Jordan. I don't think Jordan would. I know the king and his brother, they're pro-U.S. They always have been. But what if they did? Well, I'll tell you one thing. America would use every satellite and orbit-based weapon it had to disintegrate all those, and they would give Israel 100% of the credit. Not that the Israeli army and Air Force and stuff aren't good. They're crackerjack good. But if everyone was like, "Death to Israel," and they really meant it and started rolling, gear and jets and lobbing, whatever, bye-bye. Because America can make it look seamless and hidden. You got directed energy weapons, you got rods of gods, you got all kinds of classified stuff. You got black craft that can loiter. You name it. Let your imagination go wild. They've got all kinds of space-based weapons. They could decimate an entire tank division, probably within a few hours. So everyone's like, "Oh, they're going to invade Israel." And I'm like, no one's going to invade Israel. They haven't in 80 years. Egypt tried, Sinai. Nope. Now, the word is in 1965, Hughes Aircraft put directed energy weapons onto satellites. Hughes Aircraft, Hughes Aerospace. If that's
the Mormons, the fucking Mormons.
Right. If that's true, then that was the real Star Wars back then. Remember, 30 years later, they start talking about it. But it's old. They've had it for a long time. That means the 1967 and 73 wars in the desert between Israel and Egypt might have had some American satellite weapon help.
But
so it's plausible. And I agree with it. I mean, the desert peoples need to get along, and they never will, because rogue people in the deep state and others, the clerics, they death to Israel all the time, and it's so tiring and boring and childish. And I have two Islamic friends. I have two friends who practice Islam. One's in Indonesia and the other's in Canada, and they're just like, this is not what Islam was all about. It's a harsh religion. Hitler said to Rashid Ali in 1940, he says, "I admire the Mohammedans because their ethos of religious dominance by way of the sword is something I can understand, and they hate Jews." And so, but the extremists, as always, make everyone in the Islamic world look bad, and they're not. It's that's only the 1% in the extremist groups. Some others would say, "Well, I'm not going to part of that, but I'm okay with death to Israel." But most of them just want to get along with their lives and do business.
Yeah, of course. course they do. The majority of people are peace loving. You know, they want their future to be secure and their children to live and not have to fight wars and die in the streets. And then you got these horrible bastards at the top who have just no regard for anyone apart from themselves and their own vision and their own bank accounts. You know what I mean? It's sick.
If you start a war in the Middle East, it's a distraction because it's like the military guy told me. He was a general. He says the wars in the Middle East are not to be won. They're just protecting the other stuff, the Aladdin's cave, hidden treasures. And we can all guess what those are. Not just oil, but minerals and underground stuff, bases, tunnels. Who knows? I don't know, but it's definitely full of treasures. They keep raiding the Baghdad Museum.
Yeah, they do.
Tablets, they're, we better not let these be translated, and so, it's sad, but it's so easy to start a conflict on any of the borders of Israel. Half of the moon looks like Manhattan at night, and the rest of it's a junkyard.
It's just like it's the trash heap, isn't it? Isn't that where they just put all the trash? I don't know.
Structures and all kinds of things up there they hide on the photographs. The moon must be just chock-a-block with ancient ruins and crap and junk, spacecraft crash.
I want to go.
Probably a mess up there.
It's been a shit show since forever. I mean, I don't know what's going on. I mean, so how have you been though? Besides all this bullshit, what's been going on with you? What's been happening? You went to Japan. How was that? Was that awesome? Did you see some cool ruins, like those stone things that nobody understands what the fuck they are?
I did.
How was that?
The melted stones, walls, or where the megaliths are all down on the Japanese islands. They're really hard to get to.
Oh, so like those stone weird structures that look like.
Yeah, they're all over the place. You have to go from island to island to island to island to island to see all of them. That's why that video I sent you was really good. I hope you post that on Twitter.
I will. I'll post it. It's great. That's a
verse inside you. That's a really good channel.
Yeah.
Japanese. Tokyo was very clean. There's no trash cans. You got to carry your own trash bag. They take pride in every frickin' thing is polished and clean, and there's no dirty cars. There's nothing. And yes, they're a hive-minded society more so than the West, which has its advantages and its disadvantages. Individualism, of course, is almost, is low.
Really?
Everyone's very polite. It's hard to read people because they're so polite. They'd be like, oh, you fucking Americans, I want to kill you. And they'd be like, I don't want to beat you up. You never know it unless you're psychic. Yeah. But I didn't pick up any negativity from people. I got my wife and I got a couple strange looks from people on the streets, but it's, the summer, August we went because in the fall, forget it. It's spring, forget it. It's cherry blossom season and all that.
Too many tourists.
It was hot. It was very hot, but the temples and things like that, they're amazing. They really are, and the mountains are rugged, and Mount Fuji was majestic. The photos don't do it justice. You get up there, and it's like a perfectly curved volcano. It's elegant. It's like the Pininfarina Ferrari
of volcanoes.
Volcanoes. No wonder it's sacred. It's just it didn't have any snow on it. It was a summer, but in this winter you could see a million pictures. But it was breathtaking. And every little house and garden was meticulously kept.
Wow.
And their attention to detail, which I've always admired all my life. The Germans too, that kind of thing, that attention to detail is incredible. And it's in everything. The fire hydrants, the labeling of stuff, it's all very precise. And, there's no half-assed anything in Japan as far as I could tell.
I'd love to go. I'll have to go check it out.
You have to have a society that's all on board with that.
Yeah.
But if you law,
that's what I was going to say.
They'll screw you up because if you do something bad, drugs, or you get in a crime or something like that, they'll throw you in jail for 6 months before even showing you a lawyer. It's very almost totalitarian, not quite. It's up there with Singapore that does the same thing.
Cane
And the
you and
flip
shit.
side is very, very little crime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because everyone's
They say, I
terrified.
believe them when the people at the hotel, they were like, you can drop your wallet in the middle of the street with people walking by. They will trample each other to make sure they hand it back to you.
Wow.
That's an incredible society.
Oh,
And
yeah.
even the worst neighborhood of Tokyo, we always go to the worst neighborhood and where we go, Lima or whatever, to see what. Unbelievable. It wasn't bad at all. Because it's clean. They take pride in everything. There's no slums in Tokyo. They do have homeless. It's by a riverbank. They kind of hide them. But even that is just, it's amazing. So the Japanese have always been like this. It's the Bushido Code, going back to the samurais and the shoguns and the emperor, going back thousands of years. And of course, Japanese history is all based on two gods, a god and a goddess who created them, the Yamato line. And so their history, there's UFO lore. You can look it up. There's another video in there on those Japanese megaliths. They show you how much UFO lore is in Japanese history. They're like, this UFO landed here with a red-haired woman, which I thought was interesting, in the 1500s, and they have drawings of it. So Japan has incredible UFO history, but very few people talk about it. And there's no UFO clubs, or I don't think there's a gathering. If there is, it's very quiet and on the down low.
They were the first ones that popped out after we started our UAPTF that came out that said that Japan is also studying UFOs, and we're in close contact with the United States, our partners, and we will share information. And they were the first country to jump out and say it.
If you go like to bookstores, we went to bookstores and everything. There's nothing on it, and so I think you have to take that out.
The Japanese,
their military is gearing up warships.
I think the Prime Minister's wife is an experiencer, yeah.
Oh, that's right. Didn't he have like an experience with a UFO?
Yeah, let's have a look. Japan's first lady claims she went to Venus and consorted with aliens. So, yeah.
Everyone goes to Venus but us. Why is that?
So, like, hang on, let's have a look. So this is like genuine. She came out last year and said this. Miyuki Hatayama, the wife of the new Japanese Prime Minister, is quite a character. She claims she went to Venus and consorted with aliens. Yeah, man. So there you go.
Wow.
But I will say, I just noticed she's a graduate student at Stanford University.
Well, there you go. Bastion of liberalism.
Oh, that's the mind games. It's just the mind fucking fuckery over there, man.
They've probably done something to her. Yeah.
My only thing is everyone just keeps talking about UFO sightings and maybe a landing and some meet and greet with ET, and it's like nothing else. Nothing else. They always focus on there was a sighting. So what? Oh, Richard Dolan, I'm sure he'll get all excited about it. It's not that important. There's sightings, tens of thousands every day around the world. And photos and videos, which we can't trust anymore because of AI and video effects. They never talk about the other issues. It's the other issues they never want people to talk about.
So you think that's part of this whole thing with TTSA and like the spinoff is that they want the focus on the space aliens or whatever UFOs are visiting, and we can't defend against them and all this other bullshit. But they don't want anything to do with any of the psychic stuff. They don't want anything to do with like actual treaties. They want to do with actually things that have actually really happened and steer people in a completely different direction. Because now people weren't thinking UFOs are serious. Now they're thinking they're serious. Okay, cool. Well, then when you focus in there, you're completely not looking the other side of, like some of the dark shit that goes on with it, Like, I think that's probably part of it.
Never talk about the military industrial corporate intelligence complex.
Never. I mean, that's...
they want somebody said this, I can't remember who, but some guy, it made sense. He says, they don't care. They could have UFOs over DC again. They could have a meet and greet on the National Mall or, England or Toledo, Ohio. They don't care about that. They care
What
about
do you think?
all the other stuff, the military weapons, the back engineering, the possibilities of, commerce that's, unconstitutional, unethical, immoral. I mean, I remember growing up, I said something to him, this is a horrible, how can people do this? He says, morals and ethics are luxuries, son.
Mm.
They're luxuries in this world. We grow up in America with a strong set of, Christian ethics, some people say, whatever, and it's true, but you go elsewhere, you go to Southeast Asia, all that shit goes out the door. I've been to Mexico a few times, and I've seen, shots fired and, people in black SUVs. I mean, there's no rule of law there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Wild West, the entire state of Mexico. So, I mean, and in Peru and Lima, my wife and I heard gunshots outside the hotel. And I mean, it's, Americans are the worst because we are so isolated still. And the reason, our law is all messed up, everything's corrupt, but all around the world it's corrupt. Nobody wants to hear that. They want bastions of non-corruption. I said, I can't find one. Can't, because they all protect the elite, the military, the politicians, and whatever, and that's it. The rest of the people are like, they get a thin smattering of law and justice.
But Warner, like, being that you're a historian, for God's sakes, at some point the fiefdoms and the feudal systems started to disintegrate, and it was the people that rose up. Basically,
they never disintegrated.
But they pretended
England,
to give the people power, right?
Right. In England, Jean-Luc, there's 4 barons who are billionaires.
Yep.
They are extremely wealthy. Fiefdom never went away. It just changed.
Yeah.
It's like the king and queen of Bavaria. What the fuck did they do? And I saw the video, they're bowing to them still in the Oktoberfest. And when they come out and they're like, oh, there's the king and queen of Bavaria. I'd never heard of that until I saw them. It's on the down low, but fiefdoms never went away. I mean,
the aristocratic, the royal families and stuff of Europe, even in the countries where it's been abolished, the families still exist and they're still rich, but they just don't parade around and have their weddings on TV like we do in Britain and stuff,
Yeah.
They're still there running the show in the background.
The British royal family own a shit ton of real estate around the world. Like, you can't believe. I don't know how you can get an accurate count. It's really hard to find, but people know they own a lot. This is where I'm talking about the many trillions, and people take umbrage of like, oh no, that can't be. And I'm like, you don't understand the real estate they own. Tons of it, and so, but anyway, my point is fiefdoms never really went away. Working class people, and there's a billionaire over here, whether it's America, England, Europe, or Japan, or whatever it is. It's like, okay, the barons and dukes and things, they don't own the people like they used to, but the working class people are working for companies that the billionaires either own partnerships in or shares or outright.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this is just politics as usual. John Adams and Jefferson called each other whoremongers and slaves. It got ugly in the press. It goes back, even George Washington. We still ask the average American what George Washington's teeth were, and they said wood. And it's like, no, that's British propaganda. They were made of rhinoceros ivory.
Ooh, that's
hard ivory. And
so that was that a British propaganda?
No, British propaganda 250 years later. I mean,
you've all got wooden teeth, haven't you?
Hey, at least we have them.
I'll give you that one, mate. You can have that.
We got a bridge made.
That's funny, man. That's what they were mad about, that we actually had teeth. Sorry.
But this is a horrible political race, and anything that's sensitive disclosure-wise is sort of put on the table for now.
That's awesome.
It's cool.
But
cool
the problem is, if Vice President Harris wins. The Obamas are in the wings, as well as my friend Susan Rice and others. Now Obama, I'm going to presume he's somewhat read in, because Greer said he briefed him. Okay. Probably did.
Maybe he did.
But remember, they read Obama the Riot Act, the Bush Senior, according to Greer, and that makes sense to me. And so, when let's say she's president, well, Obama can brief her on what he knows, but they're going to come down on her like a ton of gold bricks, and they're going to be like, "All right, Madam President, here's what you can do, and here's what you don't touch." So disclosure of anything will be off her agenda for 4 years. But miracles from Trump, I do not.
But I thought that, so like the whole TTSA thing, the only reason we know is because of the whole, the WikiLeaks, was that Podesta was the in, and that Hillary Clinton was going to be the disclosure president, right? And that's why they were pushing the whole thing. And then when Trump won, it pushed everything back, right? That was what it
was a Lawrence Rockefeller initiative. You could see the photo. Greer was there.
Right.
They discussed it, and Hillary Clinton stood up in the meeting and said it's too dangerous.
She did. I didn't know that part.
Yeah, you can watch Greer's videos. He talks about it.
Whoa.
Watch Knowledge. He talks about it in that documentary. And
Rockefeller's been pushing it for years, hasn't he?
Yeah, Lawrence Rockefeller died.
Yeah.
And Podesta and Hillary Clinton and all that stuff went off the table. So the Clintons knew what Greer knew, which is a lot.
Yeah,
a lot of stuff.
And the photos of Hillary with Lawrence Rockefeller carrying a book about UFOs, yeah?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. And
with Greer, he was at that same thing.
Book, So, but politicians aren't the answer. Presidents are not the answer.
No.
They will never disclose because there's too much dynamite intertwined with this whole thing. And they pull on one string, dynamite will go off, and there's a chain reaction. And that's the problem. It's like when I wrote this person who wanted to do an interview, and I declined. I said no, because they think that the government can be dealt with. And I said, you cannot. And my dad told me you'll never get anything out of them. They're bought and paid for. And the thing is, UFO back engineered technologies are seamless in our world and reality all over the world. Name anything that's supposedly back engineered: Teflon microchips, fiber optics, graphene, nanotube, nanotechnology, this new cancer treatment for the liver using sound waves.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's very similar to Dr. Royal Rife, who's doing that with radio waves.
Yep.
Which are electromagnetic frequencies.
Yep.
So my buddy out west, who's former military, he says he's the one who taught me about the proton gun therapy for cancer. He said the proton gun and the frequency treatment for those are, watered down versions of what they've got in the projects for Black Ops use. They can do anything using sound waves, frequency, light, color, and the lot. And so you're seeing these things trickle out, but they're making it very specific. It's only for liver cancer. But of course, it works on everything.
Right. Yeah.
In 5 years, they'll say, oh, it works on throat cancer.
Mm-hmm.
5 years later, and 10 years later, oh, it works on pancreas. And so that's the way they're going to do it. So they won't upset the big pharma apple cart too much. And so these are little things that I notice, and I have a good network of people that send me stuff. But I'm always on cancer treatments because I know that they've got it all in secret. And watching 8 of my friends die, everyone's like, why are you into this? And I said, just the medical secrets that they're keeping from us alone are worth anything to get out. People, kids can have that, and veterans, and they should be first. But it's It's very sad. So, but at least they're coming dribs and drabs of something, the Skinar device. Anyway, hopefully these technologies will continue to roll out to help people. Cancer's the worst.
Just the whole thing sucks. I mean, I don't know. Like the world is just, one big spiral. But I just don't understand like the whole push. I still can't figure it out. This whole time, I've known you guys, and even before, I'm like, why is the push now? Why is the push now to get all the shit about UFOs out? Like, what is the bigger thing? Is it the world building thing? Is it something else? Is it and then like the newest thing you hear is that, there's a timeline that the ETs have given us that if you don't get all your shit out by 2026, we're coming to take it and everybody's going to pay. We're coming to take our shit back. It's like
there's too much crap going on. The only way we'll get any kind of UFO related closure of anything is when we're at war.
You think?
They'll do the Project Bluebeam thing, once we go to war with, let's just say, China for giggles.
Yeah.
Everyone on Jack's forum, they say, "Oh my God, the Chinese Navy is huge," and I'm like, "Quantity is not quality."
It's true.
Is the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden and the Houthis firing anti-ship missiles, and the U.S. Navy having to send $1 million missile to destroy a site, with cheaper goods. It's becoming the economics of war is becoming lopsided, and I don't understand why Iran wants to keep that on the boil. It almost seems like they want to keep prices for goods going through the Suez and the Red Sea up because the shipping costs going around the Horn instead, which they're going to have to do. Because these new generation of anti-shipping missiles coming out of Iran, some of them coming out of China into Iran, they're cheap, but they're effective. They hit you at the waterline or whatever, it's and these guys in Houthis are doing it with basic electronics. So the economics of war are frighteningly getting cheaper. The drones killing the tanks in Ukraine, in Russia, that's changed the game. Tanks were obsolete 30 years ago, but nobody listened to me. Once the Hellfire wire-guided missile came out in the 80s, tanks were done, but they keep cranking them out and they look cool on the battlefield. Now, the world has taken notice that they're really done. You can put all the cages and everything. Hell, they're flying them in under the cages and blowing them up still. There's video of one going inside a personnel carrier, chasing a Russian guy and blowing it up.
Wow.
I mean, they're going to be this size soon, if not already. This size. How are you going to stop a swarm? You can have jammers. The Russians have tons of jammers on top of their tanks, but they're going to come out with countermeasures of that. And warfare's changed with swarms, and the Houthis are using them, and I'm sure the Hamas is going to use them more and more. I mean, it's a cheap, effective weapon. It's the new RPG. In an RPG, they take an RPG round and they just drop it, and it has a shaped charge that'll go through the top of a tank, lickety split.
Well, at the minute in the UK,
really difficult now, and so this high-tech war we're seeing. Imagine the things they don't show us about Ukraine. On both sides, probably that, Americans and other Germans and the Poles are sneaking the Ukrainians some really serious secret stuff, and they're using them. And Russia's going to counter that. If Trump gets in office, he'll just end the war. I think he can do that.
How?
Yeah, he's saying that, isn't he?
I think Putin respects him enough. I think so. There's no guarantees.
Have you seen what's going on with
Ukraine war? I thought was strange and overblown, and now I'm thinking, well, okay, they're all wars. In the American Civil War, there were Prussian, English, French, you name it, people coming to watch as observers. Nothing new, but the Civil War in America, the technology race was incredible for the time. You went from basically, percussion muskets to cartridge, firing Winchesters. You had the ironclad ships with rotating steam turrets. You had rifled Parrott guns. You had mortars that were accurate. You had all this new stuff, and they were watching and learning. Oh, wow, ironclad warfare. Holy shit. This is the future of warfare, not wooden ships. And so they're doing the same in Ukraine. There's observers there from everywhere. And they're going, okay, this is the future of warfare. It's, forget soldiers, they're not doing any good. They're getting blown up by the score. What's disappointing is the American artillery that was it was $100,000 155 millimeter round that was guided. You could guide it, shoot it out of a artillery piece, and you could guide it to the target. Well, it didn't work well. It goes back to the drawing boards. And so they're testing all these new weapons. And the ones we're not seeing are the ones that interest me. And sometimes you can see it on Russian television news and other things. Wars are always like that, but boy, the observers, I bet they're learning a thing or two. And who knows what classified weapons they're using. I still think Ukraine is getting some secret help with classified above top secret weapons from European nations and America, because the Russian bear is not toothless. It's very capable. And for them to go toe to toe with the bear,
have you seen what he's saying this week? Like Putin,
probably from satellite weapons.
He's threatened the UK directly.
Again?
Because like about 3 days ago, basically, our new government, Keir Starmer, Prime Minister Keir Starmer, he hasn't said yes to it yet, but it looks like he's probably going to say okay to selling them cruise missiles that can reach Moscow and Russian targets and stuff. And Putin basically said, if you sell it to him, we're going to nuke you. He goes, we'll just destroy London. We're prepared to do it. Yeah, and it's
there was a Russian sub very close to the UK, and then there's the same old Alaskan, fighter jet squaring off. That's been going on for 80 years.
You know what though? I don't think
Alaska, the Russians send over jets, and we scramble ours, and it's a game of tag. But I have to wonder if this Russian war, trying to get into Putin's head, he definitely wants some of the czarist glory back. You can see that with the soldiers in the Kremlin. They have the old 19th century uniforms. They want some of this. They want to get away from the failure of the Soviet Union and bring back Mother Russia, which they're doing. But I have to wonder, it's like, why, is Putin going to want to, is he preventing disclosure of certain things by this war, or is he accelerating?
I don't know, because I tell you, one of his main influences nowadays, one of his main advisors is Alexander Dugin. Have you read any of Dugin's stuff?
Familiar.
He's one of his advisors. He's an esotericist, historian, but he's into the esoteric stuff. Like
he's Rasputin.
He's Rasputin, yeah. Like, so when you see his stuff, it's all about magic. It's about chaos magic. It's about hyperstition. It's about all the shit we talk about, yeah. And that's one of his main guys.
Stuff is in every war, so we should be on the lookout.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But what they're doing now is the whole, like, Putin in his speech a few days ago when he talked about Britain, he just said, he went down the whole thing again. He goes, Britain basically are made up of Satanists. The leaders, the elite are Satanists. They're literal vampires.
That was the thing. Yeah,
that's right. I heard that. Well,
they destroyed it.
Obviously, Putin knows, some strange things about England and the aristocracy and the royals.
So the bad shit that goes on. I mean, if you look at what's going on, it's like, if you suddenly get into the mindset where it's like a battle between good and evil, and
I know Stalin was of the bloodline. He had some aristocratic bloodlines. I wonder if he does. He must. I don't think they take chances. The royals, it's just insidious. The royal bloodlines rule. Look at the Committee of 300 Families in America are all related to British royalty or European royalty.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think they take chances with that. I think they, like even Kamala Harris, I wonder if she has Caucasian DNA, correct?
I have no idea. To
Kamala
be honest,
Harris, Indian,
Yes.
Indian and white Jamaican, I think.
Yeah, so they may have found some obscure bloodlines with her. I know Farrell says that Elon Musk has Afrikaner German. He's Afrikaner German, and he thinks he has royal bloodlines, maybe going back to Frederick the Great, but it's hard to dig those out.
well, so
But
does Trump.
a lot of these business and world leaders, they don't take chances. The royals always want one of their own, even if they have very little DNA.
Well, I mean, you look at Russia. What happened after the revolution? The Romanovs are killed. Maybe some go on the run and are hidden
I
under
bet
different
you
names now.
you could dig out Putin's bloodline, there'd be some white Russian aristocracy.
Well, this is where I was going to go with it, because obviously the white Russian stuff, like in terms of the CIA and the UFO ruse, like you get the white Russian guys, like going back all the way to someone like Blavatsky, Elena Blavatsky,
Yeah.
white
No,
Russian.
they were very keen on the occult in the 19th century in Russia. That's why Rasputin was so popular with the royal family of the Romanovs. I mean, he had funky, weird bloodlines, and he was obviously, like a John Dee type. He was very psychic, and he
Rasputin,
maybe healing. I don't know, but they kept him close for various reasons, and that's why so many people wanted to try to kill him, and they couldn't kill Rasputin. They tried a dozen times. He was very resilient.
I heard something the other day that the Freemasons were responsible for his death, and I'm like, why? We're responsible for fucking everything. I don't know if that's true, but
I think the Freemasons would try to protect him because
I think they would too.
That's
from what I've, because this is kind of where my research has been going for the last few years. It's like, not Putin, Rasputin was essentially part of an organization called
So like
Rasputin.
But look at this. Look at the phonetics.
Yeah, you're right. It's close.
Rasputin, Rasputin.
Synchronicity. So I mean, we're looking at the Russian aristocrats way into the spiritualism and the occult, probably before it became popular.
But Blavatsky was selling a lot of that stuff, and Blavatsky, when you look at her bloodline, weirdly, right? She's a direct descendant from King Volodymyr of Ukraine, the first Rus leader. Yeah.
So she was probably very smart and very with it, and definitely, probably psychic.
Yeah.
Royals were,
but she's from the Khazarian Empire. What would have been the Khazars? Yeah.
Yeah, the Khazars,
which are you know where that is.
Weird conspiracy about all that, and isn't our Persian friend, what's his name? He's into that Khazarian.
Oh, Robert Sepper?
No.
Sepper?
The arrogant guy.
Oh, Giorgiani?
Isn't he all into that Khazarian stuff?
Yeah.
Well, the Khazarian theory is that, the Khazars were in the 10th century, they were barbarian pagans, yeah? Anyone who kind of basically went through their region, they were robbed and murdered, like the Thuggees would do in India. And their emblem was the trident, which became the Ukraine Trizub, the same emblem. But the trident was representative of probably Shiva's trident. So they were practicing kind of like Kali worship, demonic stuff, so human sacrifice, all that stuff. But the East was the Muslims, the West was the Christians, and you're going to have that clash of the Crusades coming at them. And in the middle of all this is this Khazar kingdom, and they were given a choice basically, and the choice came from the West and the East, and it was, you need to choose one of the Abrahamic faiths because we are going to destroy you. Yeah? You're in our way. You're basically a bunch of pagans, and you have to choose. So what's it going to be? And they were like, well, we don't want to be Christians, we don't want to be Muslims, we're going to choose Judaism. So they choose Judaism, right? And it kept them safe. But they weren't really Jews, they were crypto Jews. So they still practiced their version of their weird paganism, human sacrifice, bloodlust, all that stuff, yeah?
And all religions
that's,
are pagan. I mean, in my book, they all are. I don't
yeah.
care if you worship multiple gods or a single god. God is some sort of ET, whether
nothing that involves
negative,
the Old Testament, basically. Like, because, all
those
religions.
You're pagan. And I'm like, every religion is pagan.
Anyone who doesn't
worship Jesus, God, and Mary Magdalene. Well, that's multiple gods.
Yeah.
Hello? I mean, it's so hypocritical.
It is. But this is where all of the idea that Israel is made up of usurpers, that none of them are actually from the region, that most of them come from the Khazarian Empire. Because the Khazarian Empire, a lot of those people, once they turned into Judaism, ended up in Poland and then into Germany and became the Ashkenazis.
Ashkenazis.
Yeah.
What's
so the
Khazarian Mafia? What's that all about?
Well, the Khazarian Mafia is the idea that there's this elite group of crypto Jews, pretend Jews, who still basically worship the old gods.
Right.
And that's probably where you get the idea of the blood libel stuff coming in, people being ritually sacrificed, blood being drained from little children, all that stuff put into the Passover bread. So all these racial kind of, racist, basically anti-Semitic lies that have happened over the last however many centuries might have an origin of truth based on the Khazarian Empire and their ways. So that's a lot of the anti-Semites say that Israel is invalid because just about everybody in the country, nobody comes from the region. They come from Germany and Poland and Ukraine. And there's a very small amount of them, they believe, that come from actually that area. And which is why DNA tests in Israel are illegal.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, you can't get a DNA test in Israel, without a court order. You have to get a court order to get one. If you go on sites like Quora, where people ask questions, there's multiple cases of American Ashkenazi Jews going, I did a DNA test, because they live in America, they can get them. And I don't understand what's happening. It says I'm Polish, or it says I'm German. I'm not, I'm Jewish. Why doesn't it say I'm Jewish? It's like, what's happening? And these are like full Ashkenazis.
Being Jewish is not a race. I mean, it was always a race.
Tell that to God's chosen people, man.
It's crazy.
Well, yeah, that's what I believe too. But again, when I spoke to my Jewish friend in Retford, he's one of my best friends, right? He's half Ashkenazi. Not that he practices Judaism or anything, but he holds it dear to him because his family did. And when you get into these topics, he says to me in the past, I don't believe in race. The concept of race needs to go, apart from the Jews. And I was just like, what? Surely that's like the one thing that isn't a race. It's a religion. He goes, no, it's a race. It's a race. It's a way that we identify.
They always say that we're a race of people. It's like, come on, man. I mean, ET sees us as one race, not multiples. We just have subgroups of racial thing, but we're one race, human beings, Homo sapiens. And it's just silly how people have this primal need to divide themselves up into tribal groups. I mean, the Japanese still think they're superior to everyone in the world.
They
are the chosen ones, but they don't say anything about that. Whereas, Jewish people and other groups, and they're like, we're God's chosen ones, every other sentence. And it's ridiculous. And
well, it is ridiculous.
Saying, the Anunnaki God that owns us, well, we're his or her chosen people. It's like, that's great. That's great.
Well, it's like with you know, it's interesting because like I've got a guy that I correspond with a little bit online. He's Jewish. He lives in Tel Aviv, but he's more than prepared to accept the fact that most Jews there never ever originated from that area. Yeah, they originated from the Ukraine, and he accepts the fact that majority of what we now know as Jews are Eastern Europeans and have never ever originated from any of that area. The more swarthy looking Israeli types would usually be from the northern steppe. So it would be like kind of going into the Turkish areas, you know what I mean? So that's probably where you get that look.
I dated an Israeli girl in New York when I was around 31. She was tall and blonde and blue-eyed. I mean, you'd never know.
Yeah.
She was Jewish.
Well, like
So
a Polish.
there's no racial thing. You know, I have several Jewish people. One of my Jewish friends has a larger nose than, you know, whatever. But you know, that's so he has more Arab region DNA. So what?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you know, that was just an adaptation or genetic thing.
Well, it kind of comes down to it.
Being Jewish is a state of mind. Just like I'm a Trump Christian, you know, Aryan militia, you know, from Alabama. You know, it's a state of mind. It's not a
What about you got the Ethiopian Jews who are black Jews, right? So you know, like the 12 tribes or whatever end up in Ethiopia, which is where you get the offshoot of what would now be the Rastafarians of Jamaica, Lion of Judah. Anyone like they basically what they talk about and all the hand symbols that the Rastas give out. It's the hand symbols representing the Star of Judah, the Star of Israel, Star of David.
Which is so the Ethiopians. It's sacred geometry. I mean, I think that's really curious.
Well, honestly, when you get into the Rasta stuff, it's really interesting, man, because it is basically a form of Judaism. But anyway, like the Ethiopians, guess like so anyone who's got Jewish blood is welcome in Israel, right? So Israel getting back into it's not a race thing, it's a religion, or you know, or a religion that transcends race. Ethiopian Jews, when they were turning up in Israel over the last 20 years, guess what happened to them?
Booted out.
They were forced sterilized.
Ooh,
that's lovely.
Wow.
Look at that shit.
Yeah, way to go. Way to go.
Yeah. So when you start looking,
the world is awash in racism and hatred, and it's all people parse it, and they keep making smaller subdivisions of everything. And boy, you know, that's the whole DEI movement, rainbow flag movement is just more subgroups and more and more and more. And it's like the world keeps doing that as some sort of part of human nature, you know. It's insane, and it makes the world more complicated than it needs to be. And I think that might be someone's agenda. Keep distracting people by, you know, making more minutia.
Well, it was like we were talking about before with the trans movement and gay people saying, well, they've hijacked our flag and they've taken this and they've done that. But it's funny when you look at like that's about division too. So that's about basically what used
either
to be
one of us or you're an enemy.
Yeah,
and that's the whole thing.
Well,
it's nationalism.
When someone said, right, we're from now on going to lump transsexuals in with homosexual, it's like, well, hang on a sec.
Right, and
why?
And the bottom line is it's a Marxist type movement because it's saying everyone's equal, which I think everyone should have equal rights and we're equal as human beings, but we're not all equal in what's going on in here. Are you shitting me? No, we're not.
It's crazy when you
the Nazis and everybody. It's like the Arabs were astronomers and mathematicians in the Middle Ages.
Yeah,
and they went from black to brown skin. They were Africans and Arabs in the mix.
Yeah.
You know, like the Ethiopians are. I mean, they were incredible. They were, you know, the Chinese were, you know, and for thousands of years superior to anybody in the West. The Romans, you know, got close, but the Chinese had, you know, incredible. It's so different races. Forget it. I mean, that argument is moot. I argued with a guy about the race thing, and he said white people are superior. You look at all the Nobel Prizes. I said the Nobel Prizes are That's
Rigged.
corrupt.
That's rigged.
And
Plus,
no one knows about Mansa Musa. I quiz all my black friends, and they're like, "Who's that?" I'm like, "He was the richest man in the world."
Yep.
yeah, he was great. That story's mad. That Mansa Musa
The
story.
year 700 or something in Africa, he was the richest king there ever was.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
there's drawings of people coming from everywhere visiting Mansa Musa. I mean,
he'd travel money. He'd travel across
Right.
Africa just giving out money.
Like bricks of gold.
Heroes. Yeah,
It is-
yeah, he had more gold than anyone. That's what the tablet, his histories say of him. And no one knows about this guy.
but now we're still in like you get into like like we're talking about intelligence and that kind of thing. Because in terms of IQ, the highest IQs in the world are the Ashkenazis. Yeah,
Who?
the Ashkenazi Jews.
Ashkenazi Jews.
What we were talking about before, the Khazarians.
Bullshit. IQ was invented by some eggheads. I don't know. Somebody told CIA or whatever. Einstein said the true test of intelligence is imagination.
Right. It's stronger than
Three
intelligence.
of us are talking about we have to have a vast knowledge of everything. That takes imagination.
It does.
Everyone on Jack's forum is a left brain egghead. They're
Well,
only
except for-
so far.
I'm looking at it right now, and you're like you're just
Don't give a fuck
calling out.
with
You're calling out Pandolfi. and
What's that?
And so, there is this IQ thing is rubbish, but it's a measure we have. It's crude and rude. The average of the world is around 80. They say, some people say it's 100. I looked up that the intel agencies say it's really 80. They just say it's 100 to make people feel better. But whatever it is, and whatever it's just, I think it's based on reincarnational lifetimes. You make sense. You gain knowledge every lifetime. Oh, I'm smart. I mean, Napoleon, Mozart, and General Patton, and Henry Ford. I mean, come on, these guys weren't hippies, And so this whole argument, Greer says, I have 200 IQ, and I'm like, yeah, well, you believe all aliens are angels and human beings are. How smart is that? You got mad at me. Oh, you don't know. So I do know. He's very good in some things. He doesn't know his history. He's not a historian.
Mm-mm.
Fucking doctor. And doctors can be arrogant and left-brained.
Like Sephardi.
At least Sarfati has the wherewithal to bring in unlike minds to add to the crazy narrative. Now, he's got a lot of Zionists on there, which is useless.
But get into this
open-minded. A lot of them aren't.
Are you guys in the chat? You're in this chat. Are you in this chat, John?
I'll forward it to you. Warner forwarded it to me. I don't think he forwarded it to you.
Right.
I don't think. Yeah. I like it. Simon, that guy.
Simon Holland.
Yeah, I like his work. He's been doing a lot of videos, and he's all on the UFO train now. And he's in here, and you're backing him up and just calling Pandolfi.
I like him, but he's not. He doesn't touch on anything sensitive.
Yeah, no.
He's another safe. Let's talk about safe topics.
Right.
Good. I just told him on an email. I said, I really like your work. He didn't write me back, but probably thinks I'm a lunatic. And so that's a problem. Cognitive dissonance.
Yep.
That's a real thing. And God, I went up against someone the other day, and they were just refused to go beyond their pathetic little universe.
I think that's a big thing, though. I mean, as much shit as we give, Mellon and Elizondo and that troop, is that there's normies that are out there now that have a better understanding of this shit than they ever have in history. I mean, they're not going to get that whole entire scope, and then you got to kind of baby step it in. But I think at least they're doing a little bit of it.
Not a bad thing.
No, it's not. I mean, even if it's misaligned or for their own purposes or whatever, I mean, it's still,
I still can't figure out there. Who's pushing them forward to do something on UAPs and UFOs. Danny, I don't understand. If they don't want them to talk about it, why are they pushing them? So, and then they don't disclose anything relevant.
Do you think it's more the Vatican, the Jesuits, some of those people than that? Like, you think it's maybe something non-government.
I don't. The Vatican. If people say the Vatican want disclosure,
Yeah, you're right.
why is
Right.
my question? What's the upside for the Vatican? Nothing, because you're going to lose a lot of Catholics. Even if you spin it that ETs are Catholics, or we're going to, make them Catholics, or whatever it is.
Right.
I don't see a lot of upside for the Vatican and its bank and its private armies and all that other shenanigans going up there with ET disclosure.
Right.
I think the only reason they've ever mentioned it is because they feel like Chris Mellon and the people, they got to do something, so they don't get called out when this thing blows up in their faces. It's going to happen organically around the world. Wars, conflicts, here, there. A UFO comes out of a lake in Japan, and free soft ice cream for everybody. It's going to be a lot of little things.
I'm waiting for that free ice cream for everybody.
Non-dairy. So
Non-dairy.
it's going to be like that, and it kind of is already, but it's like not enough for. There's still the fringe and everyone else. I mean, there has to be more of this going on. And I think time will tell, but they will drag their feet. The very last thing they'll ever admit is the stuff we're talking about, the occult,
Yep.
the royal bloodlines, the Anunnaki stuff, and whatever's in the military industrial complex in every country.
Yeah.
Back engineered and unethical and unjust.
Right. Yeah. No,
book. And think that, and that's going to go on for 50 years. But I think it's good for people to do little things like we do, and start doing a groundswell. I've certainly seen it's a lot different from the 90s when there was hardly anything.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's on its way up.
But there's more disinformation and muddy water too. I mean, look at YouTube, and I'll say it a million times. I mean, every day my feed comes up with brand new channels talking about the UFO subject, which is fine, but it's so lightweight as to be non-useful almost.
Yeah, but I think it's still probably pushing whatever they're doing. They're pushing the message, right? They were just pushing the narrative, right? The narrative is pushing.
They're going to try to do the softball thing.
Disclosure, right?
But that, I think, I stick behind my theory that that would have worked 35 years ago. Not today.
So you think it's going to have to
I don't trust the government. Oh, you lied about this. And they're going to get caught in lies. And once they do that, it's sort of like dominoes. They're really trying not to let the dominoes fall, is my guess. But I don't think there's a way to stop it eventually.
I think
you slow it down so that Bobby Raymond retires and Mellon retires and everyone, we kept the union together. But it transcends politics, it transcends nationalism, it transcends everything. Because it's who we are, where we came from, what's going on, and all this technology we're using. And quantum AI may work against us or for us on this. I think it'll do both. They'll use it against us, but it'll also be used for disclosure purposes. Someone's going to look at an algorithm, chat GPT 4 plus fuck bot, whatever it is, and some hippie guy will be like, I'm going to leave the company, and let it end and say, you can ask AI what's going on in the military industrial complex. Are they back in engineering things? And you'll get 10 pages. Hell yeah, they made this. Grumman did this. And it'll be like that. It'll be like whack-a-mole they'll be trying to keep the lid on so many hot pots boiling over. They're screwing down that lid tighter and tighter. And all the Mellon thing is, and Congress thing is, just letting little holes in to let some steam out. But even that won't work for long.
Right. That's a good analogy, though. It's like they have to
pressure is pressure.
Pressure release valves.
There were so many boiler explosions on ships. And in buildings, boilers tend to explode. No matter how many pressure relief valves you put in, if it's not big enough, It's just the laws of physics. It's going to blow up. It's the same kind of thing, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's probably what's going to happen. I think the other part is that they have to get on whatever side of the story that they want to be real, and to do that, the only way they're going to do that is to own the story. So how do you own it? Is then you get out in front of it, and then you say, "Yep, hey,
the other thing is the people in the disclosure movement. I mean, we could be swamped with panicked people someday.
That's
I mean,
true.
I may take the internet off and hide at my farm, and they'll be scared, concerned, and they would want answers now, and they're going to want them in quantity, and they want them easy to understand. And there's a quantity, but it's not easy to understand. You can try. I've tried. Somebody asked me, how's the UFO fly, and what's the spiritual component? And I gave my best shot at it, and they're just like, well, I don't understand. What does torsion have to do with consciousness? And I said, wow, holy shit. Even I don't understand.
Hard to explain.
So, but your brain does. That's what the whirling dervishes do. The torsion field activates the pineal gland. So torsion is everything in the universe. The universe's galaxies, everything spins. Consciousness obviously has a torsional component. And so
the whirring dervishes. We talked about that before, and we talked about it again today. Jean-Luc and I about the whirring dervish, right?
Yeah, we did.
I love those guys. I put them in my books, and they're always mentioned. But it's like so many people have to come understand so many different things.
Yeah, you're right. It's too much for the average person to grasp. It doesn't.
A UFO book for dummies, it would be 10,000 pages, even for the dummies version.
Yeah. So then, how do you make it easy? So what they're doing is the soft sell to give everybody this whatever version of disclosure they want everybody to deal with, right? Like
that's
not
why
ask questions.
That's why I write those silly white papers, like the Holy Grail, Warner's 33 Degrees. It gives you a funny way of sort of understanding maybe, how everything is gone down. I don't know for sure, but give it my best shot. And my fundamentals of history, I stand by them. And, they never change. And it's just not right. It's just not who we are. Everyone's like, oh, there's plenty of changes. I'm like, not the fundamentals. The elite few rule the many, wars and weapons.
Most people.
Royal bloodlines rule. And everyone's like, the royals don't rule. That's an argument you can't get into with people because they bought onto this thing that royals are just fanciful rich people that are on display for fun. And they're not. They're very serious. Some of them are very serious.
They're there for a reason.
They have a lot of power.
Yeah, they do.
But no one wants to hear that. They love the concept of democracy, and they don't want to hear about dukes and fiefdoms. But it's like, they don't in Europe. They barely hide it. The barons in Europe and England and everything, they live on vast estates. They hire people, but where's their
what's their income? Like, what are they doing to make that money?
Money from their reserves in Switzerland and elsewhere.
We pay taxes every year to them, and they keep it. So they then invest. They then invest that into the royal.
England's been trying to get the royals to pay taxes for forever, and they still don't.
They get something like every year. I think the British give them about £60 million,
which is a drop in the bucket for them. That'll pay for the giant bill.
But then they have stuff like that money is supposed to go into like their upkeep, but then they've got the royal duchy, which is their business interests, which they then create profit from. It's massive, worldwide. Then they've got their real estate. Prince or King Charles, right? Anybody that dies over here that doesn't have a clear will or a succession of who the money will be obviously left to. If it's unclaimed, then they keep it. It goes to King Charles.
There's a million vehicles, legal vehicles to hide money on your debt. But the royals, if you're a royal person of standing, you go to Switzerland You go to the bank where you have, let's just say, $100 billion in there. And you say, I want to leave it to my family. I don't want to pay any taxes. They'll figure out how to do it. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Everyone's like, oh no, they'll get taxed. And all the aristocrats. Yeah, some of the lower aristocrats get taxed, but the big ones, I doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt it too.
Charles,
Yeah.
the big barons, dukes, and the ones with real power and behind the scenes. You think the emperor of Japan gets taxed? Fuck no. They may come out on a story, in the London Times and say, "Oh, the royal family's paying taxes." Well, yeah, a little, but then they're making more money on that. It's all shell game, dog and pony show. It's easy to mollify the little people with newspaper articles and saying, "Oh, well, now we pay." The Queen of England. I asked her, Did you pay for the repairs in Windsor Castle? This is in 2007. And she's like, oh, well, we did and all that stuff. And then it was on to the next topic. And my dad's like, holy shit, I told you not to talk out of turn. And I said, I want to know if the English people are paying for it or she is.
Wow.
And it was a legit question. And she dodged it.
Yeah, it's because we paid for it.
Oh, yes, of course, but, well, where the hell do they get their money from? They get their money from various sources. There's other people that are, understand royal wealth and where it comes from, but a lot of it's in Switzerland and other places. Yeah. And they own a lot of real estate around the world, tons of it.
Yep.
If the royals need a quick 100 billion pounds, they sell off some of that real estate.
Mm-hmm.
They have 1 billion acres in Australia. They sell it off, and then it's quiet. It's done on the down low, and they replenish their coffers.
Yeah.
In the old days, the royal coffers had to pay for armies and other things. And the royals today they have private armies. They might fund certain military operations, but secretly. But, they need to control the world.
Yeah.
Check this out.
The pyramid that people draw with the all-seeing eye and the royals and everybody, that makes more and more sense to me every day. I used to think it was silly, and now it makes a ton of bugs.
A friend just sent this to me. Equivocal encounters alien visitation claims as a societal problem. This is from the King's College London, open access research. Oh. Basically, it's saying that alien visitation claims are a societal problem, and they move into the mainstream. They become to the extent that the government policy has to respond to them when they generate background noise, which impedes science communication, and when they become entangled with indigenous origin narratives, making it hard to recover the latter. When this is the case, periodic debunking looks like a failed paradigm. Something closer to a scientific research program might be called for at some point. This is an idea which has already been advocated by Avi Loeb and Martin Elvis, albeit in significantly different ways. It's not clear if we already done at the stage of the SRP is required, but if such a requirement does seem to be on the near horizon. This paper concludes by setting out a number of framing requirements for such a SRP, which is a scientific research program. So I guess it's
Avi Loeb. He's a Mossad agent. Great.
Who's Martin Elvis?
Well, that's it. I don't know.
He's like a bootleg Elvis.
Yeah. I mean, that's crazy.
And then
when it does become public, they'll try to control every single word that's printed. The aliens are all our friends. There's very few of them, don't worry. They're getting paid for their contractor work, in the Pentagon. Mm-hmm. They'll spin every word of it. It'll take a century to figure this shit out. They'll try to do that. But they're sitting on a mega hydrogen bomb of lies. And unfortunately, that's going to give way. So, and if there is an awakening process, this will certainly accelerate it.
Yeah. There's just, I think it's the whole gamut. We've talked about this before. Some people won't give a shit. Other people will start working for the aliens. Other people won't.
They'll start to give a shit if some of the nasty stuff comes out and they pay
forward
with their tax dollars. and their grandparents' tax dollars. You know, when it hits their pocketbooks, they'll care. Why was my tax dollars used for this project when, you know, 1,000 people were died doing it with, and the ETs got paid and we got shit, you know, some bad project that went awry and we paid for it. They're going to be plenty pissed. You know, that's the thing. It's got to hurt them in the pocketbook. Yeah, people are like, oh, I'm sorry, you know, 10,000 people died for that weapon to be manufactured, but, you know, noble sacrifice. When it hurts them in their fucking pocketbook, and they said, well, my uncle Elvis was abducted and I never heard from him again. He's working in an underground base. You know, they came around with that black 1965 Cadillac. Throw that picture up there. I'll get the picture and throw it up and say, I hope you like living with the moles underground, Professor, for the rest of your life. They'll start to care about humanistic issues and financial issues. If the Ice Cube project in Antarctica, that's Raytheon. People catch wind that that's to track UFOs, you know, in the Sagittarius arm of the galaxy, and they paid for it, and they get no benefit from it because all the corporations are using it for trade purposes and enriching themselves. That's something the public will care about. I've been taxed. I get no benefit from it. And these guys became billionaires and trillionaires. And I don't know, E.T. made out like a bandit too, you know, but not with money, but with everything else that was given to them. The unfair nature of that is going to be horrendous.
A fair chunk of my taxes at the moment are paying for bombs for Israel to send to bomb Palestine with, or for the Ukraine to bomb Russia with. Yeah, like you know, like huge chunks of my taxes, and plenty of people I know are living in poverty. And like, we've got people here that are sleeping on the streets. We've got veterans who are not cared for. We've got people dying because the health service is not good enough. But there's plenty of our money going to buy weapons for other countries to bomb countries that have got none. We've got no business to be in. No one gives a fuck. No one's well, they are protesting, but nothing will change. No one really cares. They just want to have a Chinese takeaway on Friday night, go to the cinema and drink beer. Yeah, that's it. And have 2 weeks holiday in Spain each year. And then as long as they get that, that's fine. Bomb those brown skinned people. That's fine with our money. So aliens, like,
there's got to be a part of disclosure that really hits people where they live.
It'd have to be like,
Earth could have been a paradise with free energy, and it wasn't given to us, and now they're charging it for it still. You know, it's gotta. You know, it's up to people.
It's gonna have to be something awful, like something terrible. To
and
make
armed rebellion and you know, revolutions don't work either. French Revolution, you know, it's like, you know, they've discussed that every 10 years. The Pentagon, it's going to be a French Revolution on steroids. We can't disclose, but it's coming. It doesn't matter if it's in our lifetime or, you know, our grandkids. It's coming. What are you going to do?
I still think that there's probably people at the top that are not us, not humans. I still got this weird thing that they look like us. They could be us. They walk down the halls of the Pentagon every single day, and these are the people that are pushing this way or that way.
They want the status quo because they keep getting trade goods.
Yeah, imagine that. And some people are up there, or if they're not exactly, they're influenced by these people, by these things, right? They're influenced, you know, somehow.
It's going to have to be sold as, you know, you get up there at a White House press conference with the president and say, mistakes were made, of course. And, you know, there's a brisk commerce, but we need the commerce. And a lot of it, you know, people won't be able to do anything about.
Nobody can do anything about anything now. Like we're just talking about right now, we're sending $1 billion to Ukraine, and there's people like dying in North Carolina because of the floods that just happened. There's, like you're saying, Jean-Luc, there's people all over the UK that can't even live on anything, and they don't give a shit.
So no, people have got no honestly, like, you know, it takes a lot for people to get any fight in them in the West, because even if their life is shit, right, they're still led to believe that everything's all right. Even the homeless people, it's kind of like they might be living in freezing cold conditions, but no one fights for them. They don't seem to fight for themselves. It's just like everybody's kind of just in this like stupor almost. And it honestly, it is as simple as when I feel like I'm cursed sometimes because I think about stuff too much,
Mm-hmm.
and because a lot of people that I've worked with and stuff, I'd be like, their minds. I mean, I can't say what's in their minds, but it's not what's in my mind. And it literally, it does appear to be kind of like a lot of the time. It's like, what am I going to do on the weekend? Where can I get enough money to go out and have enough beer to get me slightly drunk?
That is important.
It is.
Well, yeah, yeah. But like, but you know, when it kind of is everything, it's like, you know, what's going on with you at the minute? Oh, not much, but I'm going out on Friday night, and on Saturday night,
Yeah, I mean,
I think we're going to
we're
get
all
some
like
Indian
that.
food.
You
And
know,
it's like, that's pretty much it, though. It's like an illusion. And then they go to work, you know, 40 hours a week on really bad pay, a lot of them, um, uh, and they pay their taxes, and they do that forever until they die. And
I
that's it.
mean,
And all they get is 2 weeks a year off holiday. That's it. That's it.
it's
That's their
true.
life.
It's like everyone in it seems like everyone in the disclosure movement says, "Oh, it's in 50 years, you know, we'll be a class one civilization. It'll be peaceful, and everyone will ascend and be happy, and blah 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 blah." And it's like, um, probably not. I
Yeah.
think they're going for disclosure, and then they're going to go, "Okay, you know, the Anunnaki helped created us. Sorry about the religions, but you know, what are you going to do about it?" ET, there's a big commerce, and we fight wars with ET out in space. That's great. Now you know. What are you going to do about it? Go back to work, go back to school, drink your beer, and
That's
watch
it.
the World Cup. Now you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
Aliens are among us. Big deal. Go make friends. It's none of your business. You're not going to be able to do anything about it. Go back and watch it. And I think most people will be like, oh, go back to work. Okay, now I know. And that's
Yeah,
that. You know,
yeah.
it's a real possibility that disclosure may be a dud, in a sense,
Well, it's
not a hydrogen bomb, but a dud, where everyone
well,
goes, oh, I knew it, you know,
they do.
Skeptic was right, and there'll be the small amount of people who are up in arms about it, but most people just want to have their beer. I mean,
They do. They do. And like, and the whole idea of aliens walking amongst us, or you know, that there's a planet out there that comes and visits us every now and again, but they only do it in a certain way, so we don't really know. And then all of a sudden we know about it. It'd be like, well, what does it mean for me? Does that mean that I
yeah,
don't have to pay tax anymore? Does that mean petrol free? They go, no,
Yeah.
none of that. Life's going to be the same as it always was.
there
Oh, well, I
is
don't give
one possible caveat.
a right.
There's a theory going around by several people for the last 20 years, and they claim, many people claim, that they've talked to ET. Okay, fair enough, maybe, maybe not. You know, it's channeled, whatever. And they say, once the ET cat is out of the bag, humans can say, hello, anyone out there? We don't like what's going on with all these wars and, you know, people dying and bad food. And can you help us create, you know, Australia into a new, you know, and they say under cosmic law, if we ask them, they can come help us.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's the game changer, if that's true. Now, so
Well,
far,
it's
there's
weird.
no evidence of that. I think most ETs are used car salesmen. They come down here and say, hey, you know, we'll help you with your spiritual development. And we're like, oh, we don't want that. How about helping us with weapons? And they're like, okay, what do we get? They're being douchebags. So I don't have a hard regard of ET. I'm sure there's peaceful, wonderful people out there, but they're not doing shit. Neither is this alliance inside the U.S. military that's pushing disclosure. What the fuck have they done? Nothing. So, you know, I don't have a big, oh, ET is this beautiful. No. I think they're pretty indifferent. Oh,
Mhm.
the human
I'd
race
say,
survived. Great. Oh, the human race didn't survive. Great. Well, all these souls have learned all these lessons. That's great. Okay, fair enough.
One thing's for sure that
they'll let us go down the tubes, Jean-Luc, because cosmic law says don't mess with a civilization. And according to some people's stories, there's been countless civilizations that have gotten to a certain point and then they went away. They killed themselves, or another race came in and killed them off, or incorporated them as slaves, and they were just gone. And there's lots of tales of that too. So I don't think the universe is all that benevolent. I think it runs the gamut of the yin yang. And there's a few nice people out there that are like, well, we'd like to help you, but you need to ask. You know, a billion people need to ask at once. And
that's like what I was going to say. But this is where you get to like kind of like where I think that the modern UFO narrative is like it's I always go on about this, so I'm sorry, but you know, like the Jesuit stuff like that, Teilhard de Chardin, like the idea that to push forward the next stage of humanity or of our evolution as a species, sometimes you have to make shit up to inspire people to evolve en masse. So Teilhard de Chardin, like, was a Jesuit. Do you know who he is, Warner?
I do.
So Jesuit priest. He was part of the Piltdown Man hoax, although a lot of people deny it. But he believed in a thing called the Omega Point, which is where we all basically get to the Christ consciousness, the New Age way of thinking that we will basically become the Logos. You know, we'll get all that knowledge. We'll all evolve as one. We'll reach the Omega Point, which means that we're at that point where we're going to become gods almost. Yeah. And the people that are influenced by this are all the ones pushing it. Danny Sheehan actually names Teilhard de Chardin as his main influence, and the Omega Point, Whitley Strieber. And behind it, like the philosophies of Teilhard de Chardin were like, well, to get to this Omega Point, we need people to think differently. To make them think differently, maybe sometimes we have to play games. So his game was, he threw part of a skull from one Neanderthal man and then a jawbone, like a mandible, from another one. And he threw it into an archaeological dig pit sort of one night. He was working on it himself as a young Jesuit, in Britain. And then that was discovered a couple of days later in the dirt. Oh my God, look, we found what we think might be the missing link. So now that then hits the history books. So for about 20 odd years, they had that in the history books from the 50s to about the 70s saying this is the missing link until it was discovered to be a hoax, right? Bearing in mind, Teilhard de Chardin is the prime candidate for doing that. And now he is the figurehead for a lot of these modern ufology narrative spinners, saying that this is the guy, his philosophy about the Omega Point is where we need to be. His techniques of doing it were by creating ruses, like faking it, basically. So we'll fake it till people awaken and create this mass awakening, which will bring us to the Omega Point, which is the next stage of it, which would be the monolith in 2001, but self-made.
I mean, since the 60s, we've made some progress in consciousness. But it's not a whole lot. We're still killing each other. And, technology is the new god.
I think we've gone backwards. Like, I think that, like, Hynek said in one of his last interviews that if basically when he was asked in the 90s before he died, what do you think UFOs really are? And he said they are Ahriman from Zoroastrianism, basically. Ahriman.
That's the
well. The meaning being is that it's a product of humanity's love of mass, of matter, of things, materialism. We're self-generating.
Right. It is true because 40% of the hardware in the sky is ours now. But before World War II, it was.
But I think that the way he was getting at it, from what I could work out, and also based on what Carl Jung said about flying saucers, is that when a society is so far removed from spirituality, when religions start to die, especially in the West, right? Because where are most UFOs seen? They're seen in the West, probably in America, to be honest. Well, that's where most of it happens, yeah? So most of these stories come from.
Yeah.
And it's like, when people turn away from the church en masse, like in this country, people have turned away from Christianity, it's dying, yeah? Like, Muslims, on the whole, are not really Muslims, like we were saying before. They've become something else, hatred-driven or whatever it may be. Everybody's into having the latest things. They want stuff. That's become the new God. So when religion dies, we look for something to fill that void, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And when we look for something to fill that void, we create it ourselves, hence the UFO. So then you get into the thought forms idea. So if enough people are lacking spirituality but really need to fill that hole, they're given something to focus on and they create it themselves. That's that hyperstition stuff I was talking about before. We create our own tulpoids by a need for something bigger than us in a world that is only material. Like, we're so far away from the spiritual now that we create our own spiritual entities, UFOs, yeah.
You have. I mean, I'm as materialist as anyone else. I mean, John and I are into the old car hobby. I mean, that's God enough for us. You know, oh,
Yeah.
Carol Shelby. Oh, yeah.
Jesus built my hot rod.
I'd like cars too. I like stuff too. I do.
You know, whatever. Ettore Bugatti was a god. I mean, Ferdinand Porsche. You know, you admire certain people, and it's like the one thing I hate is like all my life there's been certain times where people are like, you need God in your life, you need religion, or you need to do this and do that, or you won't. And it's like, no, I don't need that. I believe in other people. I believe in myself. I believe that the universe and the cosmos is conscious. That's all I need. I don't need to pray to a godhead. I think Carl Jung wrote that Flying Saucers book. I'm telling you, as disinformation. He tried to pass it off as, oh, it's all hysteria. I bet MJ12 Group told him to write that because he's like, oh, it's all in your mind. You've given up God, and now you're worshiping aliens. That's a cop-out in my book.
Well, maybe, but at the same time, like,
yes, people will worship them, but that doesn't mean it's for everyone. They lump it. Carl Jung lumps everyone in together. Humanity, it's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Well,
you can't, humanity is so diverse. You can't just say everyone needs to be a Christian. That's all bullshit. You don't need anything.
They tried to do that though. Like, I mean, like Nicholas Roerich, right? It was a Russian guru, Theosophical Society kind of guy, yeah. Blavatsky connected, all that. And he's the guy who became friends with Henry Wallace, president, what are they called? Deputy president.
He's the vice president, wasn't he? Or was he the president?
Vice president, that's what you call
vice
it.
President.
Sorry.
Yeah.
He was vice president, and he called Roerich his guru. A lot of the American Congress hated it, yeah? They were like, what the fuck? You're calling a Russian Buddhist theosophist your guru? He paid Roerich to do an expedition across the Himalayas and do all this with the intention that he would end up on his trek entering into China and Russia, where it was mainly China at the time, and they wanted to convert China to a form of new Christianity, a Christianity that revolved around the Omega point. So we're starting already, right? Henry Wallace was also, on the advice of Nicholas Roerich, the guy who put the all-seeing eye and the pyramid on your dollar bill.
Yep.
Same guy, Henry Wallace, under the guruship of Nicholas Roerich, the Russian. It's always the Russians, by the way, who do this, like occult Russians from the Theosophical Society, then funded the first work of Andrei Purich.
Mm-hmm.
Went on to create the Round Table and the Nine, yeah? Same people. Purich, Theosophical Society, Henry Wallace. It all comes from the same places, and usually it starts in Russia. Same with all this Knights of Malta stuff, yeah? All the Knights of Malta offshoots that's behind all this stuff come from the white immigrants. 60 Knights, all the Charles Pinchot stuff.
The White Brotherhood, right?
Like kind of weird into the Atlantis myths. It's all the same shit, and it all comes from the same place, Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly,
Imagine that.
I agree with that. You know, a lot of it.
It's crazy, man. I think that's where I want when I actually fucking write this book I've been trying to write for the last 6 years.
Germans, I know the Germans, the SS, learned a lot from the Russians, being the spiritualists and Rasputin and their because the whole deal with the SS is they wanted to create a religion, and they wanted to glean ancient technology for weapons. They wanted to glean maybe off-world technology for weapons, and they wanted to weaponize religion. So they came up with, they modified Asatru and all these other pagan things, and sort of made a hodgepodge Nazi religion. Boy, did it spur on the SS troops in Russia fighting. They were very difficult to defeat.
Well, not only them, but the population at the time too. The population was overwhelmed because they had their sense of identity, and that this is our roots, and this is what we come from. And
they made it work for a while. It got a little crazy in the SS. The SS battalions on the Russian front were very good, but their commanders weren't as good as the old guard Prussians. Von Manstein, in my book, he complains about the SS divisions coming in with brand new tanks, but very poor leaderships because they ignore my commands, but listen only to Hitler, who's a maniac. And so, it works both ways when you have a godhead and people who are true believers and everything like that. It can work against you, which it did for them. And so it's madness. I mean, today you've got a mixture in Ukraine of the Azov battalions, which are fascist SS logos on their, and the Russians coming in with their special force. I mean, it's fascism against fascism, really.
Oh yeah.
In a lot of ways. There's no, everyone talks about democracy. There's no democracy anywhere in the world. We have democratic principles in use. The United States is not a democracy; it's a constitutional republic. So, it's everything is it's a mess. Fundamentalism versus Judaism.
Yeah.
What the fuck is the difference? The Jews think they're hot shit. The Arabs think they're hot shit.
So
everybody thinks they're hot shit.
Ukrainians, we're hot shit. We're gonna fight, and so it's two bullies in a schoolyard. I'm hot shit. Oh, I'm hot shit. It's sad, and the world goes round and round and round throughout history. Everyone thinking they're hot shit.
It's interesting how the two big conflicts at the minute in the world, like Ukraine and Israel, like I was saying before, the Ukraine is the heartland of this old Khazarian empire, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
That's why the Lebensraum, the Nazis wanted it as the breadbasket. It also feeds all of Europe and Russia, the wheat and the other grains.
Yeah.
The Ukraine it's like one big giant Kansas. Fields of everything, Iowa. I've been to Iowa. The whole state is green. It's nothing but corn and wheat, and corn gives off more oxygen than trees. They never tell the climatologists never tell you that.
Oh my God, this thing happened this
Cows
summer.
are farting, and it's like, yep, the cornfield over there is producing more oxygen, and you can
There was a thing called corn. Nobody ever heard of it until this year. It got so hot and so dry. We had a drought this year, and it was called corn. Basically, corn captures so much moisture during the day, and at night releases it, and it basically turned like a fog. Like there was and it increased the humidity by a ridiculous amount. So like at night it would release all this moisture in the air. So during the day it was like the highest. It was like over 100% like humidity rate in some of the areas with the largest amount of corn in Ohio, because it was like you could watch it on the radar. And it was because the corn released all this shit at night and the moisture back into the atmosphere. And everybody was like, why is it fucking 300 It's like swimming outside, and nobody could figure it out. It was corn.
Well,
Crazy.
sorry to cut you off, Jean-Luc, but the corn thing is interesting. A lot of people say it came from the stars, like everything else, tobacco, coffee, cannabis. And the
Chocolate.
America would never have been able to be populated without corn. Europeans still don't eat corn.
You guys don't eat corn?
Trust me, I have a Spanish wife.
Corn?
She's like, I don't like
corn.
it either. I like
you talking about
chips.
corn on the cob? You talking about corn on the cob?
Yeah.
But I like corn chips and corn bread
anything.
with jalapenos.
Yeah, we eat that stuff.
That's a Mesoamerican thing. Cornbread with cheese and jalapenos. That's right out of the Aztec. And so
We do eat it, yeah.
the Mayans. So corn was amazingly America, North and South America wouldn't have happened without freaking corn.
You're
Good
right.
old corn.
Grows everywhere, and so it fed a lot of people. And it was high calorie and high carbohydrates and high sugar. So it was amazing stuff. But anyway,
Aliens want our corn.
I'm sure we send bushels of it out there. mega, bushels every year. Why wouldn't we? Everyone says, the United States could feed the world. Well, I'll bet the United States could feed the world and a couple other worlds. That's what Earth is. Everyone says Earth is this green garden planet with a lot of fresh water. Ding, 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 ding. That's attracting everybody who's living on desert planets going, holy shit, let's go get some water, corn, and everything else they got. Why wouldn't they? It's a big supermarket. Half trade goods are probably foodstuffs. I hear beer is really popular.
So do you think that, getting back to because for
Given to us, the Sumerians, we're sending beer out. And then they recycle the aluminum. When you get 2 for 1, if you're living on a desert planet in a star system nearby, and you get a shipment of beer, you get the beer, you drink the beer, that's great. They probably recycle the water from their pee, and you get the aluminum. It's a twofer.
Twofer.
So,
we have to think of recycling thing. A lot of the stories I hear from people in space, they don't have a lot of resources. They're big recyclers. So they have to recycle all their wastewater and things that we take for granted. It's like their whole planet is like Arizona and California. They got to do dry technologies and dry gardens, and so
I just want to know for sure, man. Because we're getting back into the idea that aliens are coming across galaxies to get here. If we're traveling through interstellar space, trying to find a planet to get better resources, maybe, that's nuts and bolts stuff, right? They make a spacecraft, they get in it, and they fly here. I don't know, man. I don't even know if that's a thing, is it? I'm totally lost with it all now. Because then you get into the idea. Because for me, I'm like, extraterrestrial intelligence or non-human intelligence would be through that telepathic. Yeah, I don't know why I think that. That's what I feel like inside.
There are stories that giant spacecraft are made from DNA and consciousness.
Yeah,
so they grow it, and it's a living thing, and they communicate with it psychically, and it's grown from their own DNA and consciousness.
And so that's why they're the only ones that can fly them.
Yeah, and so it's like flying on top of your pet dog, and and it makes sense to me. Why wouldn't you want your organic spaceship to relate to you? And that's what all I hear about, the spacecraft we make is there's a biological component and a psychic component. But now they're talking about there's biological components. I don't know if you guys remember Star Trek Voyager.
Yeah.
The series in the 90s had a woman captain, Captain Janeway. Well, the Voyager spacecraft was an experimental Starfleet craft. It used gel packs of organic material inside all the ship to run all the systems.
Wow.
Gene Roddenberry and everybody was trying to tell us more disclosure by saying a lot of these spacecraft you're seeing, they've got either a large biological consciousness component or all consciousness and a little bit of biology, and no metals at all. Because I've heard stories where they've captured a spacecraft and it's like a big, giant pyramid of jello. And they're like, what the fuck is this? And they figured out how to get it open and get inside, and it's just more jello. And they're like, okay, well, the jello people made it. How the hell does this thing work? They can't find a power source, and it has
that's made from their DNA, so they are jello people.
Right, but they say the consistency is like a harder jello.
Yeah.
Not soft jello, but a harder jello.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, isn't that clever? Because you can leave it to biodegrade and build a new one if you need to.
Yeah.
And that's technology, is all the consciousness-based stuff. So I mean, presumably in 10,000 years, the three of us, whoever we are, then we'll be flying around and going, oh, I created my own starship, and lime jello, and a lot of brain power. You guys, oh, mine's better. Mine's peanut butter.
Mine's great.
Peanut butter, component in there too, and make it faster. It's not so hard to think that way. It's just organic. That's why a lot of the UFOs, they say they have no seams or rivets, because they grew it. They that's what technologies. The carbon fiber uses a giant autoclave. And so the story is that's back engineered, carbon fiber. It's very light and strong. And so you can see something that's based on carbon, it's based on earth materials. You could make something based on biological materials and make it just as good. And yet it can be sentient on a low level that you can communicate with it. So it's like you build a carbon fiber car, and you can communicate it and drive it psychically. And so that's probably what's going on in the universe. It's very elegant. We're the ones pounding away on aluminum, and
we're all pushing for disclosure, but none of us have got any idea what that is. We've got a lot of thoughts, but we've got no idea.
But I like it. It's still a good time. I love it. And I like talking to you guys about it. That's the cool part too.
Well, me too, man. It's good to bounce ideas, and it's like you were saying before, John, about being creative. This is creative thinking, yeah. Like, I mean, obviously, we're pulling it from.
You can't let scientists like Hal Puthoff and Sarfati and Eric Davis and Avi Loeb and Gary Nolan figure this out. How does a UFO fly? Well, Bob Lazar told us. It's not that hard. And so having eggheads do that are left-brained, that's only one small component of this whole thing. But they want to keep everyone focused on the hardware. With our top scientists that really aren't. I'm sorry, no offense to them, but they're not our top scientists. It's probably some Chinese girls at a school and going, holding hands and going, oh, we can make things levitate and build our own spaceship. That's real, all out of their imaginations. But because of their psychic components or whatever, they're the smartest people on Earth.
Yeah.
The egghead, the Pentagon, they're not
stuff like that. Read any mainstream science comment about these people, they're jokes. Yeah. Like, well, I don't know if they are, because I'm not a scientist.
But our science is so limited and constructivist, and it's so non-philosophical. It used to be all based on philosophy and astrology and all the sciences to be a scientist. Now everyone specializes. I'm an organic biologist.
Yeah.
It's become too left-brained. And
it's like,
everyone says, "Oh, Warner, you're a lunatic," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm right-brained. None of you are." The forum is populated with right-brain, but there's only me and Robert Morningsky who are sort of right-brain thinkers, and it's like, Jesus. You guys need to get out of your labs and stop reading, your equations. Solving the UFO ET history issue on a whiteboard with a pen is not going to happen. You need people to talk and tell stories and piece it all together in a holistic way, in a right brain creative way. And they can't see that because they don't think that way. And Chris Mellon is definitely a left brain son of a bitch. He's stiff as a...
People talk about people like Eric Davis, like they're like, oh, Eric Davis is like a top scientist and all that, but he's only a top scientist if you are only reading about UFOs, right? Because if you read about anything Eric Davis done outside of that, he's not well regarded in science. Hal Puthoff's not well regarded in science. Like, they're not. They're called pseudoscientists. They're called like, most of the time, most quantum physicists would be like, well, their stuff's all wrong. Like what they were saying there is wrong. That doesn't work. Like,
it reminds me.
No, I'm not a scientist. I'm like you. I'm right brained or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it reminds me. Here's a guy, Lou Elizondo, is arguably the front man of the government Pentagon side on UFO disclosure for the United States. And he is a counterintelligence U.S. Army officer, an interrogation specialist, who's also a spook.
Yeah.
Into it reminds me of my dad. It's like when I was a kid and there was something wrong, he tried to fix it in a military way. It's like, the doctor couldn't figure out something. And so he took me to the U.S. military base and they dug into me with a bayonet because I had a thorn in my foot. I did that one time.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, I needed to go to a podiatrist. And, oh, no, hot bayonet. Gotta get that thorn out of you. That's basically what they did. It's a very crude way of figuring out a problem if you're going to use government, military, and IC people to do this. This is madness. You need the dreamers and the mystics and everybody, not just physicists and spooks, which is all the Soul Foundation is. Physicists and spooks and some military people, and they're not doing shit. And even inside the Majestic 12 roundtable, let's just figure that out. How many right brain thinkers are on there? Probably very few. If there's a 50-person roundtable on the deep state, that the MJ12 of today, there's probably 2 people on it that are right brained.
Who funds the Soul Foundation?
Because it's hard to find a fascist that's right brained. Imagination. It's like, hey, love is the answer. Fire him. Out there. Yeah, and that's the problem. And frontliners, these left brain, rigid, neocon guys, and they're hiring physicists, Gary Nolan, Avi Loeb, who are, left brain thinkers. And left brain that's only part of who we are. They're doing it all one-sided, the whole thing. And the public is gobbling it up, at least the disclosure-minded public.
But this is it, again, because it's appealing to the idea that these things are nuts and bolts crafts that we can then try and figure out and build ourselves. And it plays into what I used to like, when I saw E.T. the Extraterrestrial, and then I watched Close Encounters, and that's what I thought about. I thought about aliens traveling hundreds of thousands of light years in spaceships that would land, and then they would help us, and we'd then have our own spaceships, and we could fly around in flying saucers. And that's how most people want it, and that's what they're being given, really.
Well, they want people thinking about hardware, physics, science, and keep it in that realm.
Right.
Yeah.
Most of it's not in that realm. It's in a more holistic, metaphysical realm. And
talking about NHI and stuff like that.
I really want to. It's like my dad again. I'm like a little kid. My dad sent me to a child psychologist when I was 8. They couldn't figure me out. They were like, "This kid's really smart, but he's got a reading problem, and we can't. All he wants to do is draw pictures and come up with stories." And my dad thought of a hard solution when they didn't realize that kids could have depression. I didn't have a reading problem. My mom taught me to read when I was age 2. She fought him. That's one of the reasons they divorced, was my dad forced me to go to a psychologist who was, came from the U.S. military.
Wow.
This kid needs discipline. So my dad sends me to a church school, thinking the rigid, discipline up here at the National, my mom fought him at every turn. He won. He's trying to figure out a left brain solution for a right brain kid.
Hmm.
And it doesn't work. It's the same thing in the UFO field. It's like, you can't figure this out with the military and the physicists and the spooks. Those are the people that have run off the rails with this technology.
Yeah.
Like little kids playing with fireworks, dangerous fireworks, munitions, atomic munitions. And
Yeah, literally.
So what do? They put these people out front. I could tear Lou Elizondo apart in a debate in 10 minutes. Because he's a left-brain thinker. He's just a military man following fucking orders. And now making money. He charges people money, making money off all kinds of things. He's a grifter.
Did you say it was $1,000 to go listen to him talk?
He's a grifter.
$1,000? $1,000 to hear him talk?
Sarfati said.
I think it's like, yeah, $1,000 to have a sit down dinner with him, isn't it?
Wow.
Pay for dinner too. You're paying him for dinner. It's a freebie.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm glad he's doing that because he's becoming transparent who he really is. Mellon and everyone have shoved him aside. I think, I don't know, probably not on the deeper stuff, but and Grush is the new point man. He's the new Bobo Star Child guy. And Lou's got to try to make a buck off his whatever fame he's got left.
But it's like, seriously, if they're going to choose a credible frontman for it, I mean, Grush, I hate to say it, I don't want to be horrible, but anybody who's been committed to a mental health unit, secure mental health unit, not by choice, doesn't seem like a great candidate for being the guy to present the truth of UFOs, right? Because all of a sudden, he's already painted as insane.
They choose loyalty over smarts all day long.
You're right.
Yeah.
Chris Mellon is not the sharpest tool in the shed. He's not dumb, but he's not left right-brained at all. He's not creative. So his intelligence is rigid. It's military and government-like. He's a bureaucrat, but he's loyal.
Yeah.
To the black hats and the dark gray hats, and so he's loyal. It's like
there, huh?
Who do they choose loyal people in military, in wars and things like the Nazis. Hitler chose generals that were loyal to him, not the best ones.
For the general public, say the Grush story went bigger, right? Because
Grush is loyal.
most people haven't heard of him yet. Like in America, I don't know about in the UK. If I went out in the street, seriously, I reckon 0.00001% of Great Britain have heard of David Grush, right? Unless they're on UFO Twitter.
And there's not that many. There's not that many in America either. I wouldn't say that.
So
3%.
So realistically, say they wanted to push it and hit a tipping point where 50% of Americans have heard of David Grush all of a sudden. Then you've got how many Americans are there? 350 million Americans. Yeah. All right. So let's say we get it to 50% of Americans have heard of David Grush. So now we've got 175 million Americans who have heard of David Grush and know what he's had to say for himself. Out of that 175 million, some of them are going to be good researchers, and they're going to go, all right, let's have a little look at it. So he was arrested for being abusive towards his wife whilst drunk because he had such extreme PTSD from his military service that he was then sectioned into a mental health institute. They're just going to be like, well, it's lunacy. I'm not listening to any of it. So,
yeah, I mean, I can only theorize that if Grush was exposed to some of the UFO stuff in the black world, that could cause PTSD.
Well,
for sure.
A wind of a program that eats up human lives or is, he could very well have PTSD for being exposed in that world. But now they've got him programmed and, I don't know, mind controlled. And,
Well, that's what it seems like, doesn't it? It seems like they've taken somebody.
Pittsburgh, come on,
Well, yeah, you got the whole Pittsburgh connection again, which is
they're probably both Freemasons of some size, some elite group.
I don't know, maybe.
What did I write in the report? Manly P. Hall said it. There's always been two groups of Freemasons. The mass of the regular Freemasons and then the tight little elite group at the top.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
the twain rarely, if ever, meet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, said recently somebody came out and said that they were pretty sure that Lou Elizondo was a 32-degree Freemason.
I saw a picture of this diploma that said it.
What? I didn't see any of that shit.
Yeah, I saw on somewhere, website or something. He spent a weekend with this guy out in Nevada, and the guy showed a picture of his Freemason 33rd degree document that said Lou Elizondo. Now, I haven't
seen this. I haven't seen it.
But that's what he said.
I haven't seen any document, but I've read about it.
All the people associated with it from FDR on have been Freemasons.
Probably.
They've got to be elite Freemasons. Elite Freemasons. And, Trump to Grush to Elizondo to Mellon to everybody, they need that baseline of, are you a loyal fucking American?
Right.
And you've got to be at a 33rd degree elite Mason. And that's too bad because that's going to stain a lot of the good Freemasons worldwide because when all that comes out, it's going to be like, well, you guys had two groups. Why didn't you confront the inner circle? And it's like, we didn't even know about the inner circle.
Right.
Well, Manly P. Hall tried to warn people 100 years ago. He did. He said,
all these little offshoot groups, haven't you? I think with
they're all secret. They're all sub rosa.
Yeah, exactly.
Knights of the Golden Circle. They're all very quiet.
Yep.
Yeah.
The ones that tried to kill Lincoln. They're offshoots of elite Masons, probably with money.
Yeah, there probably is some kind of upper echelon club that's up there.
Yeah.
Well, when you start getting into it, even the most, I'm not a Mason, but we've done enough reading, and John, I think you'd probably agree, a lot of this stuff, when you get to the bare bones of it, heads towards the Sirius mystery, doesn't it? Seems to end up with Sirius. And then, obviously, what's been the push from this recent UFO stuff like TTSA? It's all Sirius stuff. So you've got their main emblem is a 5-pointed star, which is the
they're all secret society members of one stripe or another.
Yeah. That's how they build loyalty to each other. Like you said, you're a military man, but you're awesome. Yeah, connected to the occult, and you made these oaths, so we know that you're a brother, and you're not going to be able to do anything against us to hurt us, and all this other shit. That's just how it works.
And the sad thing is, the black hats throughout history have stained the others Freemasons who have steadfastly held up those values of brotherhood and service to mankind, and that's a great cover.
Yep. It is.
I'm very angry at the elite Masons, as everyone should be, because it's just like the U.S. military. The 5% is going to stain the rest.
Yeah, that's how it usually works.
All this shit comes out, and everyone's going to, because people don't have a lot of discernment, they're going to be like, military bad, and it's only the 5% who are involved in unethical and unconstitutional programs.
Yeah.
Not the rest, but they're going to get their asses nailed to the wall because of it. And it's really sad. But what a great way to hide in plain sight, and that's to have concentric inner circles. It's like Bohemian Grove. I know a lot of people that go. Are they exposed to the inner circles? Probably not. But every now and then they invite you in.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll bet you it's they don't force you. It's, do you want to be part of the secret squirrel club at the inner part of the Bohemian Grove? Yes, I want to be part of that. They don't twist you or anything. They just ask you because it's free will.
Yeah.
That I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Addicted to being in a caste system hierarchy, and you're at the upper levels, you want to go higher.
Right.
Yeah.
You Contain all of that shit.
Did any go from the Cadillac Club to the Freemasons to the Knights of Malta? They all want to be. Oh, I want to be senior judge. I want to be president. I want to be, And then they learn there's a secret level above that, and then they're like, "Oh shit, this never ends."
You have to be Scientology clear before you get there.
Look at religion. The Catholic Church, from the Pope on down, is a Catholic, like a military of different ranks. And the women can only reach a certain ceiling.
Yeah, you're right.
We've now got a Jesuit Pope, haven't we? Which is pretty wild.
First one from Argentina, where the Nazis reset, where the Nazis settled after the war.
That's exactly right. And
throwing it out there.
I'm just saying.
He's not from Carlos de Bariloche, which looks like Munich. Oh, yes, he is.
Oh, that's right. I forgot he is from there. That's where he's from.
You start to find out these little strange things, like Elon Musk just happens to be Afrikaner German, and interesting bloodlines. It's like, oh, isn't that interesting? And
well, it's just a coincidence. Just a coincidence, right? No big deal.
Darn coincidence. Oh, synchronicity. Oh, bullshit. Carl Jung's a hippie. No, he was a hippie.
All these links, like if you look for them, you can find them. It's like this reading I've been doing recently about the Argentinian secret societies and things, and that was inspired by reading about that. The guy, the warlock, Lopez Rega or Riga.
I don't know about that. Maybe I don't know.
He's the guy that Jacques Vallée in the 70s.
Oh yeah. Anton Vallée and Vallée and all that.
Basically, like this guy, his name is known as the Warlock. He's exceptionally fucking dangerous. Stay away from him. Yeah, the Warlock basically he became the right hand man of Perón. So Perón, leader of Argentina at the time, but he was a Nazi and he was an esoteric Nazi. So he was a member of all of these secret societies.
Aren't we esoteric Nazis?
No comment. But but then he ended up paying or putting together a little ultra elite kind of private army for his own security, for his esoteric Nazism security. And part of that security was made up of Alpha 66, which is Lou Elizondo's dad's thing out of Cuba. Yeah.
Imagine that.
So they were working security operations for this Lopez Rega, who was a full-blown occultist, connected to all of these crazy secret societies, with direct relations back to the Nazis in Germany and the P2 Lodge in Italy. P2 Lodge in Italy obviously takes you straight back to the Knights of Malta, and the Nazi rat lines and all that stuff, and then it even takes you as far as stuff like the Promise software stuff, Danny Casolero, which then takes you to Wackenhut, which then takes you to Area 51, which takes you to cattle mutilations. It all comes from the same fucking places, man.
Yep.
Let me ask you this question. I've noticed something, and maybe it's just my craziness, but on Jack's forum and in other UFO discussion videos and everything, I hear the name Jacques Vallée all the time. And I'm like, okay, what is with this guy? Because it seems almost like on certain venues of this, it's like if the conversation starts going in a direction the host doesn't want it to, he goes back and says, well, in the 70s when Jacques Vallée was skiing in the Alps, ... And all of a sudden it gets to this MK Ultra psychic remote viewing things, and that's it. Because there's so much emphasis, this is just my opinion, in the disclosure world on remote viewing and Jacques Vallée and all that. It seems to be like a safe topic where if you start to go off the reservation, they bring you around. And it's one of those, say, like, oh, what about the Keck, Pennsylvania sighting? And they bring you around. You talk about mundane old news. Dolan does it, the Jack's Forum, all they do is Jacques Vallée this, Jacques Vallée that. And, back in the 70s, we proved this. And, and it almost seems, and Jack's Forum's infiltrated. So,
Yep.
I mean, Chris Mellon's on there, they're all spooks and things. And they tend to, they lambaste me, and they tend to go back around and talk about the same old things over and over and over, like Richard Dolan does, because at least, there is a lot of information, but there's not a lot of new information, and a lot of the newer stuff is they refuse to talk about it. And
Amazingly.
Talk about Jacques Vallée, the Keck, Pennsylvania acorn, and
Roswell
sighting in Washington, D.C. in 1952, and they go back to old news.
I always had it in mind.
They talk about old news, and Elizondo talks about old news in his damn book. They want people focused on the safe information.
Yeah. The narrative, the main narrative.
Narrative.
Yeah. And the narrative's like,
gee whiz, it's a mystery still. It's a mystery. And we need to solve it. The Pentagon's hiding something. We don't know what. There's something hiding something. We don't know what it is. Something was in that hangar in Ohio at Wright-Patterson.
Do you remember, though, when
old stories.
When Elizondo first appeared, though, in the public eye, I remember when he first appeared, like we're talking 2017, he'd given some speech about 2 months before he did the TTSA one, where he came out on stage and did that TTSA thing. About 2 months before that, to some obscure South American UFO conference, he'd given a speech, right? Yeah. And in that speech, he talks about mankind's, plural. He goes, what we're looking at is mankind's, not mankind, mankind's. Yep. Makes a real point of it. So back then, one of the first things he ever talked about was multiple species of human. It was kind of like, and then that's all gone by the wayside. He don't talk about anything like that anymore. But that was his first ever public appearance, and he made a real point of talking about that stuff. So what changed? What changed down the line where he's actually talking about beings? Then, yeah,
I think they tagged him as a front man.
Mm-hmm.
They said, well, you can't talk about the rest of it, but you can talk about the narrative, the script.
Yeah.
Nothing else. I mean, this is a rehash of everything Elizondo said. It's nonsense. It's fine for new people who are interested in the U.S. government's view on it, but other than that, I think it's just a curiosity. But Elizondo, in my opinion, has got up in there and told a lot of lies by omission, but a lot of outright lies. And he's a loyal, insider patriot, patriot to the deep state operative. And I don't think he's an evil guy. I don't think Chris Mellon's an evil guy. I think they truly believe the script, and they think everyone else is nuts. And while I admit, I told Chris in our first meeting at my farm, I said, well, he says, I don't believe in the wild stuff. I said, well, I think I understand what you're saying. There is a lot of stories, and a lot of them are really wild and everything. But even if 10 or 20% of that's true, it's astounding. And he would have none of it. And I said, this is just between us. And no, it's almost like it wasn't in his reality. That's not in my reality. That's nonsense. That's cognitive dissonance.
But what is in his reality?
Two guys, Mellon and Elizondo, both suffer from cognitive dissonance, as does Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis and Avi Loeb and Gary Nolan. They know the script. They know what's in it. A little bit of stuff, but that's it. And how they keep from going beyond that is beyond me. Mind control.
What's the point of narrowing it down to that degree then? Like, why? Like, I mean, their narrative, right, is there's spaceships from who knows where buzzing our military installations. They possibly are coming out of the ocean. I'm boiling this down to what they've said, like what their general vibe is. From what I get is that it's non-human intelligence. It probably originates from under the oceans on this planet.
And they bring that narrative around again. It's not from out there, it's all Earth, which somehow makes it more digestible in the public.
Well, then you get into the idea of going back to his first statement that he hasn't said again, mankind. So then you start going, all right, so what we're talking? We're talking Atlantis.
Well, it's actually the truth. Let's face it, ET's been here a lot longer than the human race, coming and going.
Yeah.
And some may have originated here.
Right.
So that is probably some truth to that. But they're distracting you from what's going on out there.
Of course.
Yeah.
In the solar system and beyond. They don't want you to, if we are fighting, I think we are fighting out there. They don't want anyone to know about that. They want you focused on, more down to earth kind of subjects. But even inner earth, that's amazing stuff if that turns out to be true. Inner earth civilizations and species and all kinds of stuff. That's a lot of real estate down there to inhabit. If we went to some harsh planet in a spaceship, we might have to live underground while we explore and do scientific experiments because it's too harsh to live on the surface. Makes sense. I mean, most of the real estate on a planet is on the inside. Anyway,
Guys, listen, I'm going to have to go.
Me too.
Good night, guys.
Been nice to talk to you all, yeah.
I love you guys. Let's do it more often.
Sounds good.
Every time. Every fight. I love it.
Every time.
Boom. See ya.
Power games.
Yeah. That's the only way he knows how to turn it off. It's okay. So, how do you turn this off? Fuck it. Bang. That's great.